So it's,
Yeah. Step in on that. We'll check with the computer. Test, test. Yep.
good evening. I'd like to stand, pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to the veterans and their families for their sacrifice. I appreciate your time and efforts. Okay. So, in the interest of time and efficiency, we're going to have the city accountant go through the budget as it is now. There'll be no questions. Any questions the council may have, make some kind of a mark, and then after we've gone through, then we can go back and cover the questions. That way we've gotten through the entire budget process, and in the interest of organization, I'm going to ask that we all work together to only address the council as a group. No finger pointing at any member of the council, no member of the audience, and no member of the administration. So that being said, I'm going to turn this over to April and let you cover as it stands right now.
Well, thank you for letting me present the budget to you today for this second workshop of the Statham City Council and the Mayor's Administration. I guess I know last time we just kind of rushed through as much as we could in an hour. We didn't get a whole lot covered, so if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to really just kind of start over. I can kind of breeze through the revenues, and we covered that pretty good at the first workshop. But starting out with the revenue, you can see anything that is highlighted in red, I have changed. I try to make sure that everybody can follow along with the changes that I've made from any previous budget workshop, or if you remember, like I said at the last meeting, there was just a lot of, waiting for this next round of expenditures to go through for the week. We had some revenue coming in, so I really wanted to better guesstimate the revenue based on, the last 2 weeks of things that have been coming in. So there have been some adjustments and changes, and like I said, everything is highlighted in red of changes that I have made. But with the revenue, you'll see just from the first workshop that there is an increase of about $90,000. You can see I increased the property tax $5,000. I increased the tax, which is line number 6, from $50,000 to $88,000, and we received a couple of tax payments, and I wanted to make sure that that was allocated correctly for this next fiscal year. I increased the franchise fees. The franchise fees vary because the franchise fees come from utility companies based on their customers that number can fluctuate, and it has increased pretty steadily over the last 5 or 6 years, going back looking at old budgets and old revenue reports. The excise tax, I increased that just a little bit. The excise tax is 3% of liquor sales. We don't have a whole lot of that here in Statham, but it is a little bit, so every little bit helps. I did increase the fines. I wasn't for sure about the fines. Now, the fines come from municipal court, and last year was just kind of a tricky year to determine the revenue. With the budget amendments, we had to adjust that number twice because we really didn't know what we were doing as far as courts, when we were having court, when we were allowed to have court. So with this year, since we have not missed a court date, well, I think maybe we did in May or something, didn't we?
We haven't missed
No,
one
okay.
this fiscal year.
So,
It's been kind of slow go at the beginning of it, July, August, and September, because we had to have a certain amount in our court, and that was it.
okay.
But we're back to full
Back to full
workout.
swing.
Yes.
So for this upcoming fiscal year, originally I had it at 85,000, but just looking at the numbers that we've been bringing in, we've had some pretty full courtrooms, I believe. So I think that for the fiscal year 22, I've increased that to $15,800. I'm sorry, $115,800. Let's see, I have increased building permits, and I've also increased business licenses. Those are on lines 57 and 59. I didn't increase the business licenses a whole lot, but we still have new businesses coming in town. So, we've received some additional payments. I didn't want to overextend it, so I just put it at $60,000 for this upcoming fiscal year. Moving down to the SLOSS revenue, we're in line 95, 96. Currently, as of today, because I did update the blue column today, so as of today, we have received $451,897 in 2018 SLOSS revenue. We should get about $575 before the end of this fiscal year. Now, SLOSS is always 2 months behind, so even in July, we'll just be getting May's payment. So I will be able to adjust that and put that back in the FY21 revenue, but I don't know why we get it from Barrow County, so I don't know why it's always 2 months behind, but I do believe that we may even exceed $575,000 for this current fiscal year. I wanted to keep it at $575 just to be on the safe side. Our interest, obviously, we get a little bit more interest each month, depending on the increase in that account. That is an interest-bearing account. Now, moving down to lines 98 through 102, those are our asset accounts. Those are our fund balances. And to try to explain it just a little bit more, I know that this was one of the questions that Councilman McCormick had, and said that it was a little bit confusing on how I was wording that. So the SLOSS revenue, they are restricted funds. SLOSS, is a referendum that's voted on by the public, and it's a 1% sales tax. And when that is an approved referendum, it's also approved as to where we can spend those funds, and the city of Statham approved and to use those funds to pay the sewer bonds. Now, it is considered revenue for the fiscal year that it is received, but it also goes into our asset account because we don't use it the same year that we get it, because we're using SLOSS 2012 right now to pay for the sewer bonds. Once the 2012 sewer bond funds run out, then we will take the SLOSS 2018 revenue and put it into a fund balance and use it for whatever fiscal year that is. So as part of this budget, it is considered revenue, but it's being put aside, kind of like think of it as a savings account that we're not using this fiscal year, where we're saving it for another fiscal year. The asset accounts, the lines 98 through the 102, are, we'll say, past revenue that the city has received, and we put in that savings account. And when we are able to use it, then that's when we also include it in our budget, which offsets that expenditure. So for FY22, you'll see, I'm in the pink column, $324,845 that we are using of the SLOSS 2012 funds. Now, those are being allocated directly to the sewer bonds. It was determined by council last year, I'm thinking it was October or November, where council had elected to use an asset account that the city had that was to be used for the Walton project, and you changed that to be able to be used for well development. So we were able to take that asset account and include it in our budget for this upcoming fiscal year for well development. That revenue is offset by an expenditure in the water budget. The GFA loan, that's line 101, $27,840. Again, those are restricted funds that is used to pay towards the GFA loan. And then the line 102 is another asset account the city has, and it is a water and sewer money market account. Now, Jordan would be here, but he and his wife just had their baby a few days ago, so he's unable to be here to help explain this further. But the sewer, or what we are recommending to do is to be able to use those funds and allocate those towards sewer capacity. Now, because the city of Statham, we contract with Barrow County to handle the city's sewer. And just like any sewer plant or water plant, you have to have what's called capacity, and it's what the plant can produce that is approved by the EPD. So each water plant or sewer plant has to get permitted on how many millions of gallons can be funneled through that water plant. When it comes to sewer, sewer is sold in units of capacity. And right now, 42 units of capacity at 220 gallons a unit, that's 3.3 million gallons annually that the city needs. That is currently about what we are over. So the city has capacity that we have already purchased from Barrow County to be able to utilize that sewer plant, but with all of the growth that the city has had in recent years, we have exceeded that. And we have not, right now we're paying the additional capacity, but we have got to buy that capacity in order for us to have reserved what we're using. Jordan and I, after looking at the cost of what we need and what we are over, if we were able to utilize this $140,000 in this asset account and pay Barrow County for the capacity, then we will officially have that reserved instead of just paying, we'll say, it's not necessarily penalties, but an overage in what we are using in capacity. Also, to kind of extend on that a little bit, Barrow County is now requiring the city to pay for capacity up front. They are no longer, by the shake of a hand, going to allow us to have additional capacity. So that is also another thing that we'll discuss here in the budget, where we would like to purchase more capacity than what we need, because once the plant runs out of their capacity, what they are permitted to have run through the plant, then we're kind of stuck because we have nowhere to put our sewer. So yes, they can upgrade their plant in order to use more capacity or to be able to allow more capacity to go through, but they have to upgrade their plant. And in order for them to be able to upgrade their plant, costs a lot of money. They need us to pay for it up front. So that's just That's just, all of this just comes with growth. The water and sewer revenue, moving on down the last section of that page, I did increase the water billing, which is line 108, from the last meeting to $998,000. And I've averaged that to be about 1,825 customers for FY22 based on the growth that we have already seen and based on the developments that we've got coming in, just trying to add to the number of customers and taking those into account. So I did increase that to $998,000. I do believe that we will go over that even for this current fiscal year, but we have one more billing cycle left in this current fiscal year, and we usually send out about 80,000 in sewer, or sorry, 21,000. But I do think that we'll actually be over $1 million in water bill revenue for this current fiscal year. I just want to see what this next billing cycle does. The one thing I do want to point out, because I didn't include it in the last column or the last workshop, is line 116, where it says WSG income, and you'll see a negative number there. That is water and sewer and garbage income. Of course, we don't use the garbage anymore, but this line item was set up when the city handled that. But this is for all returned utility billing payments, check fees, bounce check fees, or whatever the city has to return or pay back to the revenue that was collected for the water and sewer bill. So I just put a negative $2,000 because that does cut into our revenue, but it's also made up in the next line item where you'll see penalties and late fees. So anytime that we get a bounce check or an ACH payment didn't go through, or where, we have a $35 return check fee and then a $50 reconnect fee. So the $2,000 is obviously offset by the penalties and late fees, but I did want to include that so you at least knew what that was. The last item on this particular page is the garbage franchise fees. I increased that from $20,000 to $29,000. I do believe that we will have more garbage customers. After I performed an audit with Waste Pro just to make sure that the city was actually receiving the franchise fee that we are entitled to based on our agreement. And we were a little bit off, but we did correct it, and they had already mailed us in the difference that was owed to the city. So taking into account the audit that I performed on Waste Pro, I'm able to better account for what I think the city will receive in franchise fees for FY22. Moving on to the second page. Now, at the very top of the page, the yellow line where it says total revenue, all funds. So taking into account all of the revenue that the city would be bringing in for FY22, is just a hair over $5 million. With that being said, you kind of hard to read, it's small font, but how we have to look at the budget is we take the total revenue and then we have to actually subtract out the $575,000 that we are receiving from the SLOSS 2018, because that's being put into a fund balance to be used in another fiscal year. So we take our total revenue and we subtract out the current SLOSS that we receive. It's still counted as revenue because we're getting it in this year, but it's being put into a savings account. And then we're taking the fund balances that we are using, which is $804,000, and add that to it. So right now, Right now, we can really just look at the city's budget will be $4.4 million, which is the total general fund revenue plus the total utility fund revenue, plus the asset money that we are using, and then we subtract out the SWOS 2018. So we're looking at a $4.4 million budget. Are you guys ready to move on?
Keep going.
The legislative expenditures, that's the mayor and council, that is account 110. That's in the first section there. You'll see an increase from 90,000 to 119, and that is the two increases that were requested from the last budget workshop. I did decrease the capital, which was going to be used for the projector and a projection screen. I highlighted the mic system for council, which is where the $1,500 decrease comes from. I don't know necessarily if we need new mics at this point. You know, we were kind of originally looking at something smaller or something that was like a lapel mic system for council members, so I decreased that and removed that for right now. Not a lot changed with the account 150, the general government. I did increase the group health insurance just a little bit, and I decreased the computers and the server, which is line 246, by $200. So not a lot changed in general government. Let's see. The accounting expenditure, that is account 151, I didn't touch that. We've allotted $50,000 for the audits that are coming up. And with that being said, you have in front of you as well the FY19 draft audit, and you also have a copy of the corrective action plan. I was just sent those yesterday at about 5:30, and I went ahead and I've got the corrective action plan completed and filled out, and the mayor signed it for me, so I'll get that sent to her first thing in the morning. She had a list of questions for me just to kind of get a better understanding of why adjustments needed to be made. But other than that, at this point, the audit is basically turned over to their board, and then their board reviews the audit, and once they approve it, then they will resubmit it to us as the final draft for council to approve. So hopefully, the last time they took about a month for the board to review the audit, which is why currently we have a draft. But at this point, I mean, it's out of our hands, it's in the hands of their board, they're gonna review it, then they'll send it to us for the final draft and approval. They have already received lots of items for the FY20 audit. At this point, I'm just waiting for them to tell me what else they need. So they've got a lot of information for the FY20. We're just going to be moving right into that. So hopefully we'll get the FY20 done and approved and under our belts by the end of this fiscal year. That is my goal. Okay, let's see. Moving on, municipal court, that is account number 265. I don't believe that I made any changes from the last workshop that we had. The court is, I don't want to say it's an easy budget because it's not, because there are so many things that I just really don't understand about court and all of the different fines and fees and who it's divvied out to. The state gets some, the county gets some, the jail gets some. That's Tracy's cup of tea. So if you have any questions about court, I am glad that she is here. So at the end, if you would like to ask her anything, I'm sure she would be more than happy to help you understand anything. The police department. I think this is about where we stopped the last time. So I have made some adjustments to the police department first round of the budget from the last meeting. Now, the salaries, I did not change the salaries. The salaries for FY '22, I have approximately reserved $460,000. That is a staff of 11, and that is to include 2 new hires and the K-9 handler compensation. I believe that the staff of 11 includes 1 part-time, so we have 10 full-time and 1 part-time. Well, I'm sorry, we want 10 and 1 part-time total. Okay, so, but that's where we are for the police department. The COVID-19, you'll see that in there. The COVID-19, if you remember from last year, each employee was allotted 80 hours of COVID pay, and these are just the balances left over from individual unused COVID pay. So now, the government has not told us when that will go away, but we'll keep that in there until they tell us that, we no longer have to pay COVID pay. But, like I said, a lot of the employees have already used it, some have not, which is why that amount is so low in each department. The overtime, I did decrease the overtime from 20,000 down to 10,000. The reason why I decreased that is because if the police department was able to hire 2 new hires, then the overtime would significantly decrease. At least that's what the goal is. We've got these guys working a lot of overtime, and so I think we're trying to get some hires so we can try to help reduce the overtime. That could possibly even decrease even more. I just wanted to leave a little bit in there just to be on the safe side. The group health insurance, that significantly went down. I was able to really take a look at what the individual per employee cost was, and the $88,580 includes 10 full-time staff members. So I have 2 support staff, the chief, the 2 new hires, and the 5 current officers. Part-time employees do not receive benefits. The FICA did increase from 27,000 to 39. That's hard to determine, really, because that's all based on what an employee, how they set up their taxes. So I end up increasing that because I just looked at the past couple of years just to get a better estimate on what the average per year per employee was, and then I added for the 2 additional staff. The deferred compensation, I decreased that from 14,000 down to 12,000. We have 5 participants currently in the police department who participate in the deferred compensation plan, but I went ahead and I included the 2 new hires after their 6-month probationary period. So I figured at an average of $1,728 per year per employee, and that's where I got the $12,100 number. And the workers' compensation, you'll see a huge increase, and the workers' comp and the GIRMA and even the health insurance, none of which are done in our fiscal year, as an entire fiscal year. Sometimes, some are in a calendar year. The workers' comp and the GIRMA is a May to May, so I had to go back to the 2020, which was done right before I got here, and when I first arrived here in Statham, it was already set in stone what the city was paying, but I did not have a breakdown per department. I just had the dollar amount, the total dollar amount. So I divvied it up basically based on a percentage to the best I could, based on the number of employees. But what I was able to do this current year is, since I was overseeing that whole process, is I was able to get a breakdown of everything, really, of all of the city's property, for the property and liability insurance, the workers' comp insurance. I was able to break all of that down based on department, based on building, based on infrastructure, and based on equipment. So all of the line items that are in the workers' compensation, and then the property and liability insurance is really based specifically to that department and what entails in each of that department. The part of the increase for the property and liability insurance for the police department, as when we did an audit before we renewed with Burma the property and liability, we did an audit and we took an internal look at all of our equipment to include even the public works equipment. So Andy spent a couple of days looking at all of our equipment, getting the serial numbers, getting the make, getting the model. He did the same thing for the police department. I was able to get an audited property asset list. And when we did that, we found out that there were several of our things, several assets of the cities that wasn't covered. And then there were also several assets that were covered that we no longer had. So with those adjustments, we also found that even though the police department's contents inside that building were not covered, because it's not our building, because we just rent that space, we don't have to worry about the liability of that building, but taking into account everything that is inside the police department, we added that for the contents of the police department, because that's when we figure out about $750,000 worth of equipment that wasn't covered. And if that building burned down, it would really stink that we would have to come up with that amount of money just to get it back up and running. So it is covered now, which is part of the increase. Let's see. All right, moving on the police department, line 352, professional services. We have added $1,100 for psychological testing services, and that is to have a professional company perform psychological testing for any new hires. That is a per new hire fee, and I think it's $375 per new hire. Now I accounted for 3, instead of the 2, but if something happens along the way and we have to replace a current officer, we would want to, still run them through the psychological testing. Repairs and maintenance to the vehicles and equipment, line 357. I kept that at $34,000 for this upcoming fiscal year. And within the vehicles and equipment, that also includes to upfit 2 new interceptors, which, moving down into the police department's budget, the police department is requesting to purchase 2 additional new interceptors to replace the 2 F-150 trucks. To my understanding, the 2 F-150 trucks are not, what is it called, Chief? That they're not, they're not rated pursuit. What the police department and Jordan and Nathaniel with Public Works had discussed and talked about was that the police department really wants to try to gain some uniformity with their equipment and with their vehicles. And the police interceptors have really served them well, not just the space, but it also has the pursuit capability. And we actually receive them at a very reasonable price because we're able to get those through government funding. And I think we have 4 now total, correct? We have 4 interceptors. I think we have a 2018 and 3 2020.
Yeah, 22, 21, and 120.
Okay. So we would like to purchase, and we're not even, the chief is not even opposed to purchasing used, which is what we did this last purchase, because we saved about $8,000 by purchasing one that had 1,000 miles on it, even though it was brand new. It had never been sold, maybe it was driven around or whatnot, but anyway, so the police department's not opposed to buying we'll say a program interceptor like they did the last time. But the cost to upfit 2 interceptors goes hand in hand with the purchase of the 2 new vehicles in line 401 for $73,000. the police department would remove all of the equipment out of the F-150s and use anything they could to put in the new vehicles to help offset any expenditures. But then those two F-150s would be turned over to the Public Works Department because the Public Works Department are in need of vehicles and they don't mind driving used trucks. I think the F-150s have around 80,000, mid-80,000 miles, which typically you want to try to replace a vehicle between 60 and 70,000 for police department. The Public Works guys, they will run those trucks in the ground. They'll get 250, 300,000 miles on them if they can get it. So, okay. Moving down for the police department, let's see, the Shop with the Cop operating revenue, that's line 377. I just wanted to point out that is an expenditure of $1,100. However, it is offset by the revenue account of 100,004,34291. And Tracy has just received a grant that helps offset that cost. And the Shop with the Cop is like the Toys for Tots, you know, the police version of Toys for Tots. So that $1,100 expenditure is offset by the grant that they have already received. Moving down with uniforms, the uniform is an ongoing expense within a police department, but the police department is asking for $10,100, and that would uniform 2 new hires as well. The police station, buildings and rental, it costs us $19,000 a year to be down there. That's really nothing we can change there. Under other purchase services, you'll see that was increased even from the FY21 budget, which was 0, up to $16,000. But what I've done is other purchase services are the Barrow County radio fees, the police department tracking on all the vehicles, the alarms, the taser contracts, and the VPN service. I have just, instead of all of those individual items being in different accounts, I've just grouped it under one other purchase services line item. Just trying to clean that up a little bit. So the expenditures have always been there, they've just been allocated throughout other line items within the department. The police protection, line 397, $9,800, that is for some additional and new ammunition. I think that the police department still has some outdated ammunition that they would like to replace. Not that they can't use the old stuff, that they would prefer to use the old stuff during training or, I guess, training and practicing shooting and stuff like that at the range, and make sure that they keep the new ammunition with them in their current hand guns. Okay. They're also requesting the purchase of 2 new pistols and 2 new rifles, 2 tasers, and 2 vests. That would also go with the 2 new hires, but I believe that some of the equipment that they are currently using is years old. The canine expense, $8,000. That's just for the upkeep of the canine when we get it. I haven't had an update on when we'll be receiving the canine. I think in July.
We actually pick it up this Sunday.
Oh, okay.
We actually start riding this Sunday to get used to truck, being around people with siren radio going off. We will not be ready for service until around July.
Okay, gotcha. Good. Thanks for the update, Chief. Do you have a name for the dog yet?
Daisy.
Daisy.
Yeah.
Bristow will be driving Miss Daisy.
Oh, driving Miss Daisy. Cute. Capital, line 400, $21,000. Actually, Captain Davis, would you mind just quickly giving an overview on the LPR mobile system and the annual contract and how you were able to find that at a much less expense?
Yes, ma'am. We actually originally looked at Vigilant, the same company we used for the LPR system prior. With those, it would have been 2 vehicles outfitted with those with 2 cameras per vehicle. The only problem you have when you do something like that is if one's on one rotation and one's on the other, you're only getting a half a year service per vehicle, because one officer only works 14 days out of the month. But what I did is I went through Axon, which is the same company, with tasers and body cameras, and they offer an in-car camera system which monitors out front of the vehicle and the passenger back seat where the inmate's going to be sitting. That provides security for the city, for the officer, for the inmate. But that camera is also integrated with an LPR system inside that camera. So that outfits every vehicle, that camera system on the LPR system. And that was found to be, I think, a $15,000 a year payment. But the video from those cameras, as soon as the lights are activated for a traffic stop, the camera kicks on, it automatically kicks on your body camera. It kind of integrates with our stuff we've already got, as far as safety and police protection and, people protection on the road. But it also provides for the LPR system as well. So I think with the stuff that's been going on in the city, allegations, liability, I think that would be a huge asset on multiple different levels.
And currently, if I remember correctly, we do not have cameras in the back of the vehicle.
Currently, we don't have anything but body cameras on the office.
Right.
So what I'm trying to do is outfit all patrol vehicles with in-car cameras and LPR systems, which assist us in stolen vehicles, tag issues, insurance issues, wanted persons. So it's sort of multiple functions, but one of the biggest being protects for us and citizens of the community as a whole. That way we can just be completely transparent.
And it reduces a lot of liability.
Right, we've had several complaints in the last few months against officers that were found to be false accusations that you guys could look into one. But if we'd had the cameras, it could have been squashed out that much quicker.
To carry that a little bit, just to give you an idea, where this has a $15,000 a year expense, to purchase two of these systems was $37,000, was it initially?
The purchase
It was $37,500.
two cars for vigilant was somewhere around $30-something
I
thousand.
think it's
Yeah,
$37,500.
But the outfit, all the cars through Axon with LPRs and cameras was $75,000, I think, over a 5-year contract. It's $15,000 a year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so it was a big difference in expense, and plus they're getting a lot more,
Well, instead of 2 cars, you're getting 5.
Right.
Six.
six cars with cameras and LPRs.
Right.
So,
okay, thank you. Line 401, the vehicles, those are the 2 interceptors. And again, that's to replace the 2 F-150 trucks, which will be transferred to the Public Works Department. Furniture and fixtures, they're wanting to purchase 4 office chairs and a Canon printer for the patrol office. Now the software, line 407, that's $10,875. That is the cost of courtware and the Axon body cam software, which is an annual contract. And other equipment for $13,000, that's a push bumper and brush guards for the chief's patrol vehicle. That is to purchase a camera for CID for 6 patrol cargo boxes. I don't know if any of the police patrol cars have any boxes currently, but they're wanting to purchase cargo boxes in order to put their protection gear, equipment, ammunition, and so on. They would like to purchase 2 spike strips, which currently I don't believe the city has any.
We have one very old one that has the spikes missing. I wouldn't use it.
All right. And then the purchase of a rapid mobile fingerprint system. Chief, can you just mention what that is real quick?
Yeah, basically what you got with the rapid fingerprint system is we get calls all the time of suspicious people in the area. Once we go up to try to identify the person, to see if who they say they are, we can take their finger and actually put it into the scanner and it'll print up their name, date of birth, everything, if they ever been arrested before or having a warrant and anything on them. It's a handy tool to have to take, what officers on the road by itself for 10 minutes, you probably cut it down to about 3 to 4 minutes.
I believe we did a little bit of research to find a cost of a rapid mobile fingerprint system. there are costs all across the board, anywhere from, $500 up to $7,000. And, I believe the one that I included in the budget was around $3,500. So kind of a mid-grade system.
Right.
Okay. But it was with the company that you had sent to me.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
And then the only other two that are added are the monthly payments for the first two interceptors that the police department purchased at 5.9% APR. All right. You guys good? Okay. All right, moving on, Public Works. The salaries is for a total of 7 Public Works employees. Again, the COVID is just the balance of the unused COVID pay, group health insurance. That decreased from the last budget workshop, and that is for 5 current employees and 2 new hires. And deferred comp, that actually decreased because we only have 1 participant currently in Public Works that participates in the deferred comp plan. Workers' compensation, that did increase a little bit from what we had budgeted in FY21, but that all goes hand in hand with what I explained earlier with the GURMA and being able to receive a breakdown of actual costs per department. And nothing in the Public Works expenditure budget really changed from the last meeting, other than I did decrease their contingency from $10,000 down to $7,500. Because the Public Works department works so much with the utility department, typically any type of contingency would be needed in the utility fund more so than the Public Works department. I'm sorry. Can we go back real quick to page 3? I forgot to point this out. On line 477, you'll see an expenditure for $41,340, and this would be to lease, or basically purchase over payment, a mini excavator. I know that's something that the Public Works Department has needed for quite some time now, and a new dump truck lease for purchase, and to purchase 1 zero-turn mower. Now, the reason why I have it all bundled in one is because, well, one, if it would be approved, then I would actually move the mini excavator into its own line item, so we can break down the payment. And then the same would go for a dump truck lease, and the zero-turn mower, we would probably just purchase that outright, just pay for it and not lease it. But I came up with the $41,340 based on what the city paid for payments for the backhoe and bobcat that we paid off a couple of years ago. So I just wanted to point that out. And account 553, community centers expenditures. We have $25,000 allocated for repairs and maintenance of our community centers, and that is a heat pump replacement for the Hillman Community Center, the Robert Bridges Park Community Center, painting both of the community centers, and then replacing the toilet sinks, the tiles, and the wall coverings. And then an additional $3,000 for other repairs and maintenance that are typical in the community centers. And recreational activities, I have $10,000 allocated towards recreational activities for any summer concerts or the Christmas parade and then the Halloween festival. Park expenditures, those are different from the community centers. That's generally a pretty small budget, but any repairs and maintenance or general supplies, those are more for like when we need to replace the flags at any of the monuments, We need to buy grass seed or straw or replace bulbs and that type of thing. The utilities is their power bills. The library expenditure, you'll see a decrease in the utilities, general supplies, dues and fees and communications. And I have just reallocated that to the intergovernmental line item, which is the $61,600. And what I wanted to do with that is currently the city pays for their office phones, the city pays for their electric, their gas, the water. So the city pays for all of that. And what I'm trying to do for this upcoming fiscal year is include, just say it's $5,000 that we would normally allocate towards all of those different items. Just include that in the intergovernmental agreement that the city has with the library to help offset their funding request, but the city not having to do that. And that also holds them more accountable. If somebody else is paying your electric bill, you might have your AC on a little bit cooler than you would as if you were paying it. So I think this just helps eliminate a little bit of unnecessary liability or expense for the city. With that being said, they have requested an increase of $15,300 for FY22. So the council approved $45,900 last fiscal year, and that would be increased to $61,600. Now the site improvement, where it says the $6,000, the site improvement, I believe they're asking for an additional $6,000 to help continue the payment of their renovation. Because they received more money from the state, they're asking the city to give 10% of what they received from the state. Permitting inspection expenditure, that is for Bureau Veritas. That is quite a significant increase from last year. Last year we budgeted $30,000, and year to date we've only spent $18,000. But I have included $54,000 for a budget for our for our permitting and inspections. But I would like to point out that those fees are offset by what the city obtains in permitting fees that we collect as revenue. So whatever the city collects in revenue for inspections and permits, Bureau Veritas receives 70% of that, and 30% stays with the city. So that expense is actually offset by how much we collect. Planning and zoning, that is a decrease. It's a decrease from last year. Last year we budgeted $25,000, and I put in last meeting $20,000, but I have reduced that down to $15,000. But I have also increased legal ads from, we've only used $864,000 so far this year, but I've increased that to $3,000 just because of all of the upcoming planning and development work that we've got coming in. And we have to advertise all of the rezones and variances and conditional uses appropriately. Code enforcement, I have $30,000 allocated to code enforcement. Right now, we've only spent $10,000 year to date, but I'm hoping that in the upcoming fiscal year, we'll be able to increase those services. What I did with this is I put in $80,000 to a paved street. I would also like to say that I know that we have a sewer project that we're going to be working on, or hoping to be working on, that is not included in these numbers. That's included down in the utility fund budget. Currently, I don't have anything allocated to sidewalks and crosswalks, but I believe that Councilmember McCormick just emailed me a quote for a sidewalk, which, I think each of you have a copy of that. So we can, you guys can talk about that here. Sewer expenditure, that's account 431. This is where the $250,000 sewer main replacement between 1st and 2nd Street, located in the alley behind Castos. And that's also to include the tree removal and any additional landscaping, but we have $250,000 allocated for that sewer main replacement currently. In line 601, infrastructure capacity, we have $140,000. Now that is offset, that expenditure is offset by the asset account that I was discussing with you earlier on the, under the revenue account with the water and sewer money market. So that would just, for council's approval, council would have to approve to be able to allocate that restricted asset to be used to purchase capacity. But the money is there. Going down to sewer lines expenditure, I did decrease the contingency on the sewer lines contingency from 15 down to 10,000. A large part of that is because we're going to be investing $250,000 in that sewer main replacement, which is where some of the issues are currently. And then the $215,645, I increased that $645 because I had forgotten to add the $645 annual fee that Regions Bank charges us for whatever reason. Water expenditure, the salaries is for one full-time, one part-time. There is no individual COVID pay left for the employees who fall under the water department. Group health insurance, that increased a little bit just because I was able to figure out what that actual cost would be. Other than that, we've got $30,000 allocated to professional services, and that's for our engineering services. The workers' comp did increase, by $4,000 from last year's budget. And again, the workers' comp goes hand in hand with the property and liability insurance and being able to do that audit. And then on the last page, the only other thing that's highlighted in red that I did change is I did decrease the water purchase from $320,000. I took that down to $270,000 because at this point we are starting to get the water plant back up and running, and I believe that we are working on receiving our samples from the EPD to make sure that everything is approved and ready to go. And the $312,000, which is in line 689, that expense is offset by the asset account that council approved to move the Walton Development Fund into the well development. So that cash is already there. One change that I did make is on 694. That's an increase from 1,000 to 10,000, and that was my mistake. I forgot a zero. But that is the Solar Bee annual maintenance contract, and it's $9,000 and some odd dollars. I just rounded it up to 10. I meant to have 10 in the last one.
Which one was that? I'm sorry.
That is line 694. Solar Bee, we have Solar Bee and Tank Pro. Tank Pro, they have to do annual maintenance on our water tanks every year, and Solar Bee, they go to the water plant, and that's an annual maintenance just to make sure that everything is running smoothly over there. We took it out last year because we didn't have the water plant running. Water line expenditure, with that being said, going back up to line 682 under water purchase. I did decrease that from 320 down to 70, or did I already say that?
Yeah.
I already said that, never mind. Water lines expenditure, I didn't make any changes from there, but I do have allocated $20,000 for the purchase of more meters. And under the spring, I didn't change that from the last time. We've got a $42,000 budget for the spring. One of the additional things that we did add is under general supplies for $1,000 is we are wanting to purchase some cameras for the spring because there's been some vandalism at the spring, and we had to go out and make some repairs. So one of the things that we wanted to do is install some cameras out there just so we could keep a better track of it. And we got a $10,000 contingency for the spring. If a pump or anything went out, that would take up half of that contingency for one item to need replaced or repaired out there at the spring. So we may not use it, and we hope that we don't have to use it, but we should definitely have a contingency in there just in case if we do need it. So with all of that being said, the total revenue that we have coming in is $5.008 million. The expenditures are $4.433. However, we would have to subtract that $575,000 that we're not using and putting in the asset fund balance account, which takes us to the $4.433 million in revenue, and I currently have it balanced at $4.433 million in expenditures.
Okay, thank you. Council, I'm sure there are some questions, so at this point, who has the first question? I'd like to
I do. On the American Rescue Act,
Yes.
do we have any indication on when those funds are coming in?
Honestly, I believe it's probably going to be after the fiscal year's over. And I say that because I watched a webinar yesterday that GMA put out, and they were talking about the smaller cities such as Statham, that they're talking over 30 days. So I think it could probably just be on the cusp. Now, they're not planning, the second portion of the disbursement isn't going to be for 12 months after the first one is received. So I learned that yesterday in the webinar also. So right now, the city of Statham is slated to get $890,000, I believe. And with the first disbursement, probably after the first of the new fiscal year. So if that's the case, then we wouldn't receive the second disbursement until after the FY22. So probably the cusp of the end of FY22 or the beginning of FY23.
I want to make a quick suggestion that maybe we would consider making our final adoption date the last possible date in June instead of in the middle of the month where we have it now. That way we give ourselves 2 more weeks for these funds to come in and get utilized in this fiscal year.
Okay.
that would go against the charter. If we have the ability to do it 2 weeks prior to the end of the fiscal year, we're obligated to do that. So if those funds come in, then there could always be a amendment done.
Correct.
With a public hearing. But to meet the criteria that's set down since 1900 whatever, it says that we have to give a balanced budget no later than 2 weeks prior to the end of the fiscal year. So that would be breaking the cardinal rule, I guess.
But we could, like the mayor suggested, we could always do a budget amendment, as soon as the funds are received. And then that would also, give us a dollar amount as to what it is that we have received specifically. Because even at this point, I mean, and they tell you, it is an estimate, it could change, so, don't spend, $400,000 and we don't know if we have $400,000 yet. So, but we could, amend the FY '22 budget, it's just, at least within 3 weeks after we receive it. And the reason being is because we have to hold a public hearing and we have to advertise it for 15 days and it has to be in the newspaper and all that.
Well, why don't we make plans to do that?
Well, you're dealing in futures.
So you're asking to make plans to wait till the last day?
No. Well, it was just a suggestion.
I think he's suggesting let's go ahead and plan on preparing for a budget amendment after the first of the new fiscal year.
Well, I'm just opening up for discussion on what is the best thing for the city. If this money comes in, 2 days after we approve the budget, what do we do?
At that point, I would have to advertise it in the Barrow Journal, but the way that legal ads have to be, it would really depend on the day that we get it, because I have to have all legal ads a week before the first time that we want it in. So you're looking at a minimum of 3 weeks. So if we approve the budget on the 15th,
It might be the middle of July or the first of August.
Now, we could include it, if the dates work out right, we could include it at the regular meeting of July.
Work session.
No, it would have to be the regular meeting. The work session would be too early. It wouldn't give us enough time to advertise the public hearing.
We could have a hearing and then vote during the regular voting meeting.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It would have to be like a work session.
Then we would
If
need to
you
wait until
advertise
August.
it for the public hearing, it might be between the work session and the actual voting session.
Right, then we would need to wait until August.
Yeah.
Just for timeline, because I have to advertise it for 15 days before the public hearing takes
It
place.
has to be 2 cycles.
It has to be 2
In
cycles,
local order.
and I have to have it to the paper a week before. Right there's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So if we would miss the, depending on when we would get it, we would miss the work session of July.
I'm a little confused. Are we talking about postponing voting on the budget, or are we talking about doing a budget amendment?
We're talking
That would
budget
be more a
amendment.
budget amendment.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. He originally said, what if we postpone? But then that is against the charter. The charter says 10 days prior to the end of your fiscal year. So that would be our next voting session with 15.
Right.
So,
And the reason I said that was because the federal government made a point that when they pushed this relief act through, they pushed it through faster so that cities and local governments and county governments could get these funds in their fiscal year budget, the one we're working on right now.
Mr.
other questions?
But I assure you, I mean, as soon as I know that we have the money, deposited into our account, I mean, we'll be the first to know.
Well, I have one thing that's not a question, but I just want to make it clear to the public and to the council. Line item 102 on the first page about the water and sewage. As you stated, we are actually over what we've paid for.
Correct.
So the county is hitting us with penalties every month because the amount that we paid for, we are exceeding. Some of the things that we had engineering groups and different companies in and worked with Jordan and Water, the street department, they were able to find a lot of places where it was leaking and allowing storm runoff to get into our sewer system, which really, on heavy rains, it would spike, and the city was paying heavy penalties for those particular instances. One of them was just as simple as a storm drain that went through a low-lying area, and probably kids lifted the lid off. So I believe we put a locking type lid on there, but it was 2/3 off. So, of course, when the water rose above that neck, it poured in there just like water going down a drain. Another one was right across the street here. Where you go up the alleyway, and there was crumbling and cave-in on part of that sewer line. So water runoff and seeping down through that was our number 2 location. And they were actually able to come in and do a liner, which is good for like 50 years. So rather than dig up that road and replace the tube, the pipe that goes from the center of Jefferson Street back to the back corner of the Public Works building, they actually did a liner that will give us another 50 years on that and cut off that runoff. Another place is the project down here behind Castos that we need to take care of. Most of that is more a collapse than some storm water, but this is one of the reasons why we're asking for utilizing that line item of $140,000 to get a payment to the county, who's really been hammering us, and get us some capacity to pay for what we're now getting penalized for, and get us a little bit ahead of the game so that we're paying the normal rate and not paying penalties every month. So I just wanted to clarify line item 1 and 2. So, any other questions at this point?
Do you want us to just go down through?
Yeah, do you have a question? Go ahead. What page are we on?
We're on page 2,
Okay.
number 163, education and training.
163, got it.
Page 2, line 163.
Education and training?
$1,500 budgeted there,
Yes.
and we have 3 seats coming open for election next year. Is that, if 3 new people are seated, is that going to be enough money for newly elected people?
The newly elected officials training is typically held in Athens, and I believe that the cost of the training is $425 per person. So $1,500 should be. It does not include GMA. At this point, GMA still doesn't know whether or not they're going to have it in person or if they're going to have it all virtual.
They might have it in August.
And
But they don't
they
know.
did move it to August,
Yes.
regardless of whether or not it's going to be held in Savannah in person, or it's just going to be all online or virtual like they did this past year. So it's still up in the air with all of that. I did keep Sandra, for her to continue her city clerk courses, that is in the budget under the general government. But as far as mayor and council, I don't know what's going on in Savannah, so
I think they're supposed to make an announcement June 1st or something like that. I saw an email earlier.
Now, we could take the travel and the education and training and really just put it under contingency, under legislative, so that way, that dollar amount, $4,900, we could just put it in one account under the contingency, so we can use it if we need it for newly elected officials training, or if if they have Savannah, if you want to take an online class. That's all really still kind of up in the air.
And then line 168 for capital,
Yes.
I would like to put just a couple $100 in there for a printer out here, so that when we have committee meetings, if we need to print something, because right now the printer's locked up,
Sure.
and we can get to it after hours.
I would like to add to that, I don't know, what line item did you say that was, Gary?
168.
168.
168, okay.
Wait, hang on.
I would like to also add another computer out here and add it to the city's computer network so we can either print or, I've been down here sometimes and I don't want to bother the city staff to print simple documents for a meeting or something I'm working on, bids, proposals, or whatever. Maybe we could just set up a little computer and workstation somewhere over here in the corner or anywhere we can sit down and set a little PC and printer up for the council and even the city staff or anybody that wants to come in here with a city email address, log on and print a document if they need to.
Based on a recent purchase for Jordan's computer, a computer and a printer, probably 2,000 or less.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because you're not gonna be putting a lot of stuff on it, you know, so it wouldn't need to be a huge computer.
It was only like 1,300,
It wasn't
brand
even
new,
that.
wasn't even that.
No. Like,
And then a printer, I mean, you're talking,
$300.
if that,
We had some PCs here at some point.
they were, I think, Thomas,
They got served.
one of them he updated and used it for a backup on our video, one a backup on the police's video system. One of them, I think he wound up stripping out. So there's one back in the back room I can have him look at, but,
Okay.
I mean, they were starting to get some age.
Okay, I got you.
But
Well, I mean,
if he
it doesn't have to be
can,
anything
he can resurrect it, I mean, we can use it, and then only purpose we have is the printer.
Well, okay, so I'm adding $300 under capital. I'm adding another $1,000 under computers for a total of $2,000. Now, the travel and education, do you want me to just place all of that in contingency, or do you want me to keep it under education and travel?
I think we can leave it as it is for now. We should have an answer on GMA soon. I think before it's time to vote on the budget, we should have an answer on that.
All right.
Just leave it at 15.
If they're gonna do it in August or,
Yeah.
Well, we know.
They would be separate because this one is for newly elected,
Yeah.
which is always in Athens.
yeah.
But the GM
I'm gonna put a
is
question mark
for
right.
any elected official.
Yeah, they usually have
I-
annual conference.
Yes, and I did not include any GMA in the legislative budget at this point. The $1,500 would be for like the newly elected officials training, which is mandated. So,
And for us, we drove each day, and,
right, I mean, you get reimbursed for gas, fuel. All right, anything else under, 110?
I think that's it on that. Any questions on the general government expenditures section, which is, 150?
Line 186, we had 128,000 last year, and then we went to 166. Is that, are you hiring there, or?
No, that is. Well, we have the, I guess, part-time, but the total comes out to $165,870. for salaries under general government. That is my salary, Sandra's salary, Connie's salary, and Susan's salary.
But it only shows we've used 117 out of that, and we only got a month left.
Right. That's because we didn't have somebody part-time for, most of the year last year.
You say, actually, we're at 155?
Sorry?
You said we're actually at 155
No.
for
No.
all the salaries there?
For the salaries for FY '22, we have 3 full-time and 1 part-time under general government, under City Hall, and it is $165,870, so I just rounded it up to 166. There's a $30 difference between the actual and,
Oh, 165, 7.
So all we're looking at is an added a part-time position.
yes. Well, last year, we had Michelle here for a little while, and she was part-time. But she was only here for a few months in the last part of last year, which would have been in the first half of the fiscal year. She was no longer here, and then we didn't have anybody for a little bit, and then we just brought Susan back for part-time.
Are we budgeting COLAs?
Sorry?
Are we budgeting COLAs?
I don't know.
Cost of living increase?
No.
I don't think there's any in here for now.
Well,
We budgeted last year.
no, that's not necessarily true now. I believe that Mayor Piper here's the breakdown of the salaries, how I got my numbers on the budget. And this is a copy of what everybody's salary is, when their last raise was, and whether or not you were wanting to give them a raise. So, under general government, 1 employee was going to get a $1 per hour raise effective 7/1, and yes, that has been included in that salary amount.
717171.
So any cost of living raises for any individuals, whatever their total salary amount is included in the budget. Because they were going to be effective 7/1 or whatever after this fiscal year.
The only thing I don't like about the way the salaries are broken out was that there's lots of room to hide whatever you want to hide, however you want to, it used to be spelled out for us, this person, that person.
The list,
Used
the
to
mayor
be,
has the list.
I know that, but it's, it's not like that anymore. And we look good on paper, but we look good on paper last year because we've had positions we didn't fill, we've had,
We've had at
there's
least,
been a lot of slack.
we've had at least 3 open records requests for salaries. And we've had at least 3 people on the council ask for a list and the salaries. And we've provided every time
And everybody's
anyone that's
mailbox is
asked.
correct.
So it's there, it's available. You can only put so much in these line items. And if you broke down every salary in the budget, it just would, go from 5 pages to, it would get ridiculous, but it's available. What's that?
I said, on the paper, it was good that.
Put it on this paper. As I said, to break it down on the budget, we have all the line items of 18 employees or whatever.
I have emailed all of council my spreadsheet a couple of different times, and there is a tab at the bottom for PD, leave, insurance, GERMA, dues and fees, deferred comp, salaries. So in the spreadsheet that I provided, it has all of that breakdown.
While we're talking about the salaries, I had a talk with the chief very recently. And I feel like we have a turnover problem in the police department, and that's not a reflection on the chief or the department when I say that. In doing exit interviews, there was a list of things that people told the chief why they were leaving. And some of it is, family insurance benefits, which we fight that with everybody. Covering cost of a family member is a problem for a lot of people. But things such as the retirement plan that we used to pick up for the police department, which I think comes out to about $26 a pay period,
I think
something like that.
And POAB,
I would like to see us add that back in there.
What line item is that?
I think that's going to be line 347. I'm not sure if it's the same thing as that police officers annuity.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
347?
347.
Okay.
One of the other things, there's several things that were listed, but there's only a handful that we could possibly address in the budget. One of the other problems we have with the police department, I believe, is that we're starting to pay at a lower rate than any other surrounding departments. And I think the chief could probably get more information on that, but if I'm not mistaken, we're starting out at $40,000 now. We outfit these people to come in here, and we spend the money to outfit them, uniforms, everything else that we're spending. They stay here for a little bit and then jump somewhere else where they can make more money. I would like to see us try to start our officers out at least at the same rate as surrounding cities and the counties, so that we can retain officers. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but
I have a comment on that as well. I mean, have we moved on to police department? Is that where we're at in the comments?
I was just jumping around while we were talking about salaries, but
Well, but I mean,
sure.
if we're there, so I was looking at some of the older budgets for the police department, and I'm going to go back to 2019. And first, the very first thing I want to say is I want to say thank you to the chief and thank you to everybody on the Statham Police Department. And I absolutely love what's going on over there. It's moving in the direction that everybody wanted. We could not be happier with the way that you're handling the police department. Across the board, I don't think anybody has a bad thing to say about the police department. So I don't want to get my message to get mixed up with, anything other than me stating a fact about, my opinion about where these funds go. A lot of times, sometimes, I know I can take things personal sometimes, so I want to make sure that I let everybody know that I love the police department, the chief, and everybody that's there. But I wanted to take a look, and I looked at our budget from 2019. We had, I think, 4 officers. The budget in 2019 was $434,000. The budget that we worked on in 2020 was $548,000. The budget for 2021, which which actually what we're looking at here is an amended budget. If everyone remembers, in the middle of the season, we decided to amend the police department budget up to, the 824 number. So I think if we're looking at, we need to look at what it was amended from in 2021. Does anybody know that number?
770 some, if I remember right.
It's on the website.
I couldn't find it on the website.
Well, part of our cost on the police department has been rebuilding it.
Right.
You know, we went so long without police cars and equipment.
Right.
And, without a police canine. So a lot of the stuff that we're incurring now is because it hasn't been funded in quite some time. And, you know.
I knew that coming into it, there was gonna be a lot of expense coming, replacement cars and equipment, upgrading, adding personnel. We kind of knew that, coming into it. I think it would be wise for us to consider, instead of adding 2 new hires, is to add 1 new hire and 1 new vehicle this year, and use those funds that were left over and redirect. And Councilman Venable just pointed out that we have a big problem with benefits. We have a big problem with the rate of pay. We have a big problem with retention. We lost 2 of our key people. We lost 2 of our key people, 1 out of Public Works and 1 out of the police department because of benefits. Because some other department in some neighboring town basically said, we got better insurance, I'm going over there for my family. So I would like us to take a look at redirecting some of these funds to items 341, 431, and the other one is in the cities. Where's the one for the general government? There it is. 192. So that's 192, 341, 431. That's the group health insurance. And I would like for us to consider what kind of impact that would have on the pocketbooks of the people that work here and make Statham what it is. Go ahead.
Reallocating it to the group health insurance, are you referring to like paying for families?
Yes.
Like employee and family?
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't have a problem looking into covering family insurance, but not at the expense of cutting our police department. Personally, I will not support a budget that cuts our police department.
I can't either. The people have asked many times to have 24/7 coverage. They don't want to go down to the police department and knock on that door and it says, call this number if you need help. And the chief has done a significant job at trying to bring 24/7. I agree with you 100%. If we make the benefits a little bit sweeter, but when you are comparing us with Loganville and the street department, we can't compete because we don't have the tax base and we don't have the budget. However, we can be competitive on a lot of those grounds, and when you consider that there's at least 225 homes that will probably be built in the next 15 months, that budget's only going to increase, like it or not. It's going to have to increase because we can't do it with 4 police officers. One of those police officers was the chief, and if he's either on patrol or he was the chief. And reflection on Alan Johnston, you can't be both. So, go ahead, chief.
I'm gonna put together right here a 5-year proposal for the police department. It also has statistics in the growth between now and 2025. We know that things change all the time, but also, I put in here, best I could along with my team, the growth in residential and population growth. And, basically what I did, put together a 5-year plan. I didn't make enough copies for everyone, but if anyone would like to have a copy of it, they can stop by the station, please get one. But I'd like to submit this to the mayor council, get them time to look at it, and see, the growth, what we're expecting in the next 5 years. That's all.
And I also need to add, as a lot of people know, we do have a drug problem. And when you consider, what is it, 2 out of every 3 stops,
Out of 5, 3 cars out of 5.
and they've got drugs.
Yes, sir.
And most of the time, it's because there's a taillight out, and they walk up, and there's clear smoke coming out of them, and it's marijuana, or it's sitting right out in plain view, or it's the biggest one, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve,
Yes.
the biggest violation is expired plates.
As far as plays, faulty, like tag lights, signal lights, stuff.
You know, so it's just a courtesy stop a lot of times, and it's yielding drugs. And so, you know,
Actually, we had one officer to go out and this up put together, went out and stopped one car. Just, I know this, I only stopped one car and was able to get, how many?
Which one we're talking about?
That's, when all the marijuana was picked up, when got all the marijuana. I think it was meth, all the marijuana, one of the other couple of grams.
I know 2 vehicles that one officer stopped, he got 74 grams of meth. Another officer stopped the vehicle and got 24 grams, or, yeah, 24 grams of marijuana.
Now, with the K-9 that's coming out, hopefully, once you get full, trained and stuff, you'll still get those type of hits and probably even more. The thing is, once that officer is off the road, and I think I explained that once before, the paperwork stuff alone take about 2 to 3 hours. You gotta get this guy over to the county. There's no one left in the city. If the county has someone that says a call go out, if they're not here, it'll take them at least 10, 15 minutes to get here. So the city is left without any coverage. If he stops someone at 8 o'clock and we get off at 10, there's no one else on the road. No one else on the road till 10 the next morning. That is downtime in the city. We beginning to feel it. Cars and stuff have been going through, businesses have been attacked. These guys know our work schedule better than we know it. I hate to say it. They know when we're not here. So, the growth is coming, change is coming, people is coming, so we're gonna definitely have to sooner or later consider and look at, what direction we need to go in as far as, kind of staff, a little bit out of time, that's where we need to go. We're gonna definitely need staff.
Now, with that being said, if the 2 new hires are funded, will that give us 24/7 coverage?
We can make that work, yes, sir.
What would one new hire do?
Take me off the road, put me back in admin.
but it still would not give 24/7. It just free up some of your time
Just free up my time to do admin stuff.
to do what you need.
See, what we,
And you're still working a 100-hour week.
close to it.
Don't
I'll
tell
cut
me
a
you're not,
little
because
bit.
you're pretty close to it, because I keep tabs on it. So the chief's working a 100-hour week. You're working doggone near that. So we got, I mean, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's in the nursing field, doctors, attorneys, it doesn't matter. Anybody that's running 100-hour weeks, it starts to wear on you. It's a health issue, and it becomes a safety issue. Because that officer out there running 100, whether it's you or a patrol officer running a 100-hour week, they're going to make mistakes. Mistakes can cost lives. And now we've got liability because we want to cut the budget. And
Well, I think one of my biggest things is I want this department to have 24-hour coverage. That's one of the things I think citizens deserve, and I think we deserve it. But at the same time, I do know it costs. I do know it costs, but it costs. It's expensive. We are a small department, small city with not a lot of funds coming in, but, I don't wanna be behind the 8 ball either as the city begin to grow, and we don't have people out there.
So here's my question. Here's what I was driving at. We're looking at a $400,000 increase from last year to this year. What do you see, where do you see your budget in next year? Are you gonna use the $1 million as a starting point next year, or are you gonna back down if we're not buying cars, equipment? If you're settled in, so to speak, with your staff, where do you see your budget next year?
If we got our shield covered, and was able to get the 24-hour coverage and the stuff we needed, I don't see it getting $1 million. We basically still building, right? Once we are stabilized, you'll probably see a drop. Actually, I'm sure you'll see a drop a lot. We invested in all new computers in the office, which cost a great deal that y'all approved for us, which we needed. The vehicles that we have now, we're looking at 5, 6, 7 years on. Vehicle for me, if nothing don't happen, I have that vehicle for the next 10 years. So the investment up front is heavy.
Right.
But on the back end, it would definitely be lower.
So you think you could get down to 800 next year?
Yes, sir.
Well, $107,000 is 2 vehicles.
I know.
That,
I know that. I'm just, this is a discussion. I don't know. I'm asking for
And to
information.
piggyback off what you're asking and what you've said, every 3 years is about the lifespan of like the printers and the tough books. So you're gonna see a spike 3 years down the road. If they have the vehicles and they have manpower, then the biggest part is going to be the benefits, the liability, and the salary.
And also, you gotta look at too, with other revenues that's coming in, stuff that we're getting, that we can, have forfeiture closing on that may have money, stuff else, we stop some of the drugs, enough that's been distributed, and they got $2,000 or $3,000 on it. We'll try to confiscate that. That goes into the fund. If once it go through the court still.
Sure.
And, so it's a lot of different things. Also, sooner or later, we'll be able to start getting grants. And hopefully in the next year or 2, 3 years, grants would take up, would help us a whole lot. A lot of stuff, then we won't have to pay for it. That's government funding.
Well, I would like to just point out something, and this is piggybacking off the chief talking about the growth of the department, and the more people that come here, and the more people that, make Statham their home, there are certain areas that are going to increase, like salaries, insurance, benefits, right? I mean, that's just what it is. It is what it is. But just from me adding up currently what is on the budget, salaries, health insurance, taxes, deferred comp, workers' comp, and property and liability, that is $675,680, and that is nothing else within the department. So, cut and dry, bare bones, you have the workers and they've got health insurance, but you don't have a building, you don't have cars, you don't have expenses, you don't have, protection, you don't have anything else, and it's almost $700,000 just for those things. So I guess my whole point is the Statham Police Department ever becoming a $700,000 or an $800,000 police department again? Is probably just not going to happen, and I say that just because this is 6 items, and it's $676,000. So,
It's 6 of the bigger ones, correct?
They are, well, yes, but, okay, it costs $20,000 a year to rent down there. All of the radio feeds and the tracking and the alarm, that's $16,000. Just for the software, that's $11,000. For all of the other equipment, that's $13,000. For the gasoline, that's $16,000 a year. So what is that? $34,000. Repairs and maintenance on vehicles. So of course, that does include 2 upfitting, so that's about 20, so that's $15,000. So I guess, you know, really the point, and we're still gonna have overtime until we get enough staff to where we don't have to work overtime. That's 10 grand. So I guess the days of Statham being a $600,000 police department are just over, you know, and that's for a multitude of reasons. You know, yes, we're doing things now for the police department that, you know, that you guys have been hanging on by a thread by for years. Or, you know, we're increasing staff and we're getting, insurance is just expensive. And we can't do anything about that. It is what it is. So it's the cost of doing business, I guess.
The other factor I think is worth considering is that the county is still providing support for us on stops. They respond. We got 2 officers stop. They still, sometimes it becomes, you know, a 3-officer show for a tag light. So I'm just saying, is there any give in the schedule? Is there any give? You know, I know you send someone to jail, you got, you know, someone to hold the fort down. I understand all that. I'm just, my county taxes doubled this year. I don't know about anybody else's did, but,
That wasn't your true tax bill. That was just an estimate. They'll send you another bill.
They'll send you. Don't count on us.
well, it didn't look good.
Right.
It didn't look good.
No, it don't, I know.
So I'm just putting everything on the table so everyone knows and everything is considered.
And to add to that, the city pays funds to the county for a lot of this stuff too. We have a fund that we pay in for the jail and a lot of the stuff that the county does. So that tax bill, yeah, it probably contributes, but the city of Statham is still contributing to a lot of that stuff too. But just saying.
Councilman Marble, by adding back the POA and D, it would be about $4,200 a year. And I figured that at $25 per officer twice a month. So it's $50 per month.
$25 a month.
Yes.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
like 12,
Oh, so 25, I thought it was $25 a week.
That's a monthly fee.
Oh.
And I figured up 26 would be 300.
Sign up for these officers.
Okay.
$25 a piece.
So I guess to wrap it all up, what's it gonna look like to sweeten the pot, to get the benefits to the point where we have employees saying, oh, Statham has got good benefits, I'm going over there. I know the chief over there, they got good benefits, I'm leaving. What are we gonna have to do as a city to make that happen? Because I'm sick and tired of losing our key people. And then when you lose a key person, it's not like you just got that other key person come back and jump right in their spot. Everybody is, you know, getting scarce. The employment field, I don't know if you've replaced Officer Binder yet.
No.
But there's my point exactly. He's been gone. So there's something where retention is killing us. And there's something where I feel like if we did something in the benefits and pay section of our budget, and we did it now while we have the opportunity, we could start attracting the kind of officers and staff that want to stay. You know, that's a tragedy to lose a quality person over a benefit, over something we can make a difference of in budget season. So I think it's worth talking about, and I think it's worth looking at what that would look like in financially and.
Did you say Auburn kicked their police starting?
Yes, they are at 45.
And we are 40.
40.
What about Hall County?
Hall County, they just passed, I think 2 weeks ago, they did a $5,000 increase across the board to all the employees. So the average officer goes up to 0 years of experience. He's in mid-50s, early 50s. If you have a degree, have years of experience. There's one particular officer, 3 years experience, 61,000 right now.
I don't know if
I'd rather-
that,
But but you talking about Hall County, you talking about
yeah, right.
a whole different beast.
Oh, there.
But Watkinsville, where one of our offices went, was paying $1.50 an hour more, which is equivalent to $3,300 a year. City of Auburn, you know, we started out at $18 an hour, they're starting out at almost $22 an hour. So, just in when you're in Watkinsville, that big of a gap.
That brings me right to my point of what can we do to, in budget season, to stop that from happening?
Start pay.
Well,
Start pay is going to affect the employees versus
Right.
just benefits, because some people may not need their spouse covered.
Right. Well, and if you want, I mean, what I could do maybe between now, and the next, workshop, or actually the next would be the hearing on the third, so that next week. So next Thursday is, I could do a little bit of research just from the surrounding areas on what they offer as far as health benefits. I would say most places pay for employee and then they're responsible for their family. But there might be, something where, well, actually, I know the town of Raffleton pays for everybody in their tax.
Oakwood pays 100% for family as well.
For family.
Flowery Branch, same thing.
But like Gary said, we really only have maybe 2 or 3 employees that even have their family on our policy now. Most everybody is, just the employee only. Because like you said,
But it's
I want to make sure
so
that my request is not only for the police department, for public works, the girls, everyone.
But I can check just surrounding areas just to see what everybody else offers. I think, last time I remember, Winder paid a certain portion of the family, I don't remember, like 50% of the family or something, so there are a lot of options, and.
Yeah, we've lost, I've only been here a year and a half, and we have lost 4 officers. And the guys we talking about we were losing is all in the 20s. So they have moved on simply because.
Right.
That's it.
Would you like for me to do that?
Yes,
Before the next meeting?
yes.
Chief, on your vehicles, if you get 2 new positions and they're budgeted, what are they gonna drive?
Well, we don't,
If we take the 2 trucks and give them to Public Works, you're just going to gain 2 interceptors. So,
let's see, okay, we'll have 1 truck, we would need 1, because, actually, AJ is driving 1 truck now. Once he gets his SUV, that truck will be available. We're just still on the sideline, and it's on the sideline waiting to be driven. So we got 2, if they came to Public Works, we'll have 2 vehicles, 2 officers, 1 new officer will get 1 SUV. What was the second one get?
I'm working on that, sir.
Okay.
I guess what I'm asking is, if the vehicles are full now,
Mhm.
and you get 2 new employees, and you're just doing an even swap, you're getting 2 vehicles, but then your old 2 are going to Public Works, don't you have 2 officers that are not gonna have a vehicle?
We have the
Or-
tourists.
We have the Taurus, the only thing we have left would be the Taurus and 2 Crown Vics.
How many miles on Crown Vic?
Chief,
Yes, sir.
currently, if we got 2 new vehicles, take the trucks away, what that would do was, currently, like you were saying, AJ is in a truck, but we have a Explorer being updated for him. Okay, so that's a non-issue at this point. So if you go with 2 new Explorers, we would have 1 Crown Vic, a spare vehicle. One of our new hires would have to be in a Crown Vic for the time being. But with the Taurus that is sitting for spare right now, one of them would be in that, one would be in a Crown Vic.
So the Taurus is.
It's
It's not being driven on that sideline right now.
Okay.
Waiting to
Currently,
be
don't have somebody in it.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's, I see what you're saying, that's CJ's old car.
Yes.
Well, whoever would replace CJ would go into the
Right.
Taurus.
Correct.
Correct.
It's in
Or
the
family
event.
got that.
Right, in the
Yeah.
event that we didn't get the Explorer. But the Crown Vic, one of them has 100 and,
Well, they're both under 110,000, unfortunately, but if that's what we gotta use, that's what we gotta use.
Would it be possible to get 2 new hires and 1 new vehicle and then redirect the funds from the 1 vehicle?
That would leave us with no spare vehicle in case something went down. So if a car goes down, then nobody has anything to drive here and shit.
But to me, it would make more sense to have the 2 trucks versus driving around.
Well, if we did that, then
Because,
I would have 2 people, well, they would be in trucks, correct. I'm not arguing that fact at all. But then the road department would still be without vehicles with lower mileage on them, and we would still be in vehicles not suited for police patrol function. It takes a 3-point turn to get one of those trucks turned around. And on these streets around here, by the time the offender gets gone.
now, you could potentially get the 2 new interceptors, keep the trucks, or maybe even keep 1 truck for the police department. Then they would have the Taurus, and then we could sell the Crown Vic, right? And that would just, those funds would just go into the general fund under a sale of assets. So it would just go back into the general fund as revenue collected. And then we give one of the trucks to the Public Works Department, and whichever one that is replacing, we would sell their truck on gov deals and use that as a sale of assets that would help offset some of that expense.
All right, can I throw a monkey wrench into it? The reason I suggested upgrading the 2 pickups to interceptors and putting the trucks into Public Works is because up until Raymond left for $3,000 more and better health insurance,
Right.
went to Loganville. As you said, we're losing people. Now, Loganville's a lot bigger than us, but still, that's beside the point. We had one vehicle. So that meant John was either riding with Raymond or Bobby or Jordan. So you had 2 people in 1 truck all the time. So that would alleviate part of that. However, and we have one that's probably going to start.
Tuesday.
Okay, I was thinking it was this coming Tuesday.
He's Raymond's.
That will be
Okay.
Raymond's replacement, okay? But then you want to hire 2 more people. So technically, we're going to be 3 vehicles short on our Public Works Department if you're going to try to run that efficiently instead of, then you're going to have double up 3 people, essentially. So, I mean, we're kind of in a same situation. We say, okay, our budget is getting bigger and bigger with the police department. In order to get to that 24/7 that people have asked for, we're kind of pushed that direction. But we also have kind of the same situation that because of the extra burden put on as we're adding homes and we're adding more population to Statham, we need more people on our Public Works. And so you can't just hire them and they're going to walk around all over the place. So we need vehicles under them too. So we're kind of at a point where we need extra vehicles in the police department to get to that 24/7, and we need extra vehicles on the street department to get the employees more able to do more and not send 2 people out for a meter reading, or something like that. And one of those vehicles is at about 300,000. I'm thinking it's Jordan's. And if you want to thrill, cross over 316 when you're in the pin, because I think it has little to no compression left. So his is really, I mean,
His truck?
yeah, his pickup that's just shy of
Yeah.
300,000. And we have another one, I think, that Andy drives, that's in the 200+ range. So the rest of them are, of course, in 2019, you all bought the one truck with the utility tech. So that one, yeah, Bobby drives that one.
Right.
So, and I guess the other vehicles are still usable, as April said, that this guy will, you can take a vehicle with 90,000 miles on it and still get another 110 easily out of it, but I'm sorry to interrupt you, what you were
Well,
going to say?
have you thought about bringing the prisoners back for the street department?
I talked to Jackson County, and Jackson County is, they don't have any available. Broward County is utilizing them for their parks and their recreation. So Broward County has none available. I've not talked to Phillips because I've had so many citizen complaints about the prison help from Phillips that I haven't even reached out to them.
I wouldn't.
At this point, Jackson says they have none. They don't know if they'll have any this year. And I said, can I get on, and can you put me on the list with, so Statham, and he said, well, I can put you on the list. He said, but I can pretty well guarantee that we're not going to have any help available. And like I said, I reached out to Broward County and Winder, and they don't have any. So, I mean, if you all want me to reach out to Phillips, but, I mean, we're going to need somebody with a bullwhip to watch
I
it.
don't think we need to go there, but
Yeah,
I just thought if we could get, the ones out of Jackson County,
yeah.
it would eliminate some of the vehicles we're trying to.
I talked to him back, the county manager back in, I believe, February, and then I reached out to him about 2 weeks before I went in the hospital, and because back in February, he didn't know. He said, we're still basically in lockdown, but now with everything starting to release, and he said, I'll put you on the waiting list, but and I told him we have the van, we have the trailer, we have, the weed eaters and all of the equipment. I mean, so all we need is, 4 good people would be real helpful. And so, no, it's not panning out, but he said it keeps on the list. Yes.
One thing that we could look into is under the, it's on line 477, under the Public Works Department, under the machinery and equipment. Right now, we have in there a lease for the Mini X and then a dump truck lease. Now, we have the, I guess it's not really a dump truck, the one that they, the limb truck.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have that currently. I'm assuming that can they use that as kind of like a dump truck? And that's what they've been using?
I think it has the ability
Yeah.
to dump, yeah, it
So
does.
I think so. So I think maybe, I don't think that, I'm not sure the Public Works Department would care whether or not they get a 1-year-old vehicle or not. So maybe, because right now I just have it broken, I have it all lumped in together because I don't know what the actual, like the lease payment would be. But we could change the dump truck lease, which would be, I'm guessing, I guess 14, really only around $16,000 a year for, as far as a lease payment. We could take that and apply it to the purchase of a newish used vehicle. Instead of, in lieu of the dump truck lease, we got the Mini X, and then we could get a truck for the department instead of the dump truck.
And I think
I like that because that leaves
That
the
leaves that available.
F-150s that are outfitted for the police department currently.
Right.
It keeps them from getting stripped and put out to pasture as a good sideline vehicle or a backup vehicle, at least one of them.
Right.
Maybe we could do 1 and 1 and do what you're saying. I think we have some other options than just buying everything brand new. And with those funds, we're trying to free up a decent amount of money here to increase the benefits, sweeten the pot to keep our employees. That's become real apparent and real important to everyone here, here in the recent months. So I think if we start looking at other options, we might find the funds that we need to get done what we want.
I just don't wanna take the trucks, which have approximately 80,000 miles,
Mid-80s, 80, 85.
and then put people in Crown Vic that have even more miles. Just yesterday, on the way home, one of the trucks was involved in a chase, up Free Will Mountain.
One of our trucks?
Yes. So, you know, I just don't want to see us go from, I mean, I understand what we're trying to do, but I don't want to see us go from taking the police that we hired from an F-150 with 80,000 miles, putting them in an even older model vehicle, and then they possibly get into another chase or something.
But another thing you look at too, you're gonna bring new officers in, and they're gonna look at, because we have that take-home policy, when you take home cars. And you gonna bring in a 25, 26-year-old, and they're gonna look at what you're driving, they're gonna look at the Crown Vic sitting over there in the corner. And they think they get a Crown Vic, well, I can go up the road here and get a Dodge Charger. I mean, I know it sounds bad, but they look at, I did when I was there. I was stuff like that, so, that plays a big part, that's a big part of the recruiting package as well. So.
The last thing I'll say about the police department is I think lately, I feel like we have a drug problem in Statham. Personally, I feel like we do. I've seen some of the bus, and from that other crimes come, I think probably everybody sitting in here knows somebody that's had theft here in the city.
What happened, it will start hitting out businesses, and that's one thing. I've come through here on my days off at 2 or 3 o'clock. Sometimes I get up, middle of the night, I just walk through, and I've driven through the alleys. And I'll roll down my window, you don't see anyone, but every once in a while you'll see 1 or 2 people walking through. I'm like, walking the back alleys, it's not against the law to walk, it's a road, but sooner or later, the 1 or 2 people that you see, you're gonna start seeing 3 or 4 people, 4 or 5 people. It will grow. That's just something gonna happen with the growth.
What did you want me to change other than adding the POA and B, $2,100 a year, 42?
Chief, if you could call around and get us a list of starting salaries for the next budget meeting.
Yes, sir. From different agencies around, I can do that.
I got a question on vests. Is there a shelf life, so to speak, even if you don't?
5 years.
5 years, I was kind
They
of.
come to the next expiration date, they'll still work,
Yeah.
so that's the expiration date the company gives, is 5 years from time of purchase. Or time of, it being built.
Now, what you look at, it says 5 years on that vest. We use that vest past 5, 6 years, and unfortunately, something happens. That's a liability that comes back home to the city.
How much- how
It's
much-
like anything else, it deteriorates, sweat, water, elements.
Yeah, I'm sure
Has to be under
there's
police
perspiration,
protection.
all kinds of factors. I mean, it's like, motorcycle helmets, I rode for years, and they say 4 to 5 years.
Right, and
But
the
you
thing
should
with-
replace it at 4 because material
Deteriorate.
Right.
deteriorates, it dries out, and so instead of a cushion, it's like you model your head hitting the.
We have 2 budgeted right now, and that's under the police protection line 91, line 397.
And when you speak of vests as well, they are about $900 a piece, and those are vests that are gonna stop a 40 caliber or a 45. Those aren't the 44 mags, the 357 SIGs, rifle rounds, anything like that. It's kind of a lower level vest, and they are sized to fit a particular officer. Luckily, we've hired some officers that roughly the same size as the last one, so they were able to utilize them. But if it comes way up here, we gotta buy a new one, so. one of those things, but
I hate to ask this publicly, but are you guys using any expired vests currently?
currently, no. I think that was the problem, why we had to amend, is because our uniform budget went over with the turnover rate we had this past year, with people leaving, going to other agencies, was $900 vest here, you know, $1,500, $2,000 clothing here, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was actually something that we addressed, last amended.
Yeah.
So we made sure that, I think last time, didn't we purchase 2 vests last year?
We did, well, yes, at least two. Mine, I'm sorry, mine actually expired next year. So, pretty much. I just thought about that. Yeah, much more.
Is there anything else from the police department?
Okay. Anything for Public Works?
Do you want to, would you like for me to, change the dump truck to a work truck, please?
If he needs a new truck, I think the money would be better spent to get rid of a 300,000 mile vehicle.
I mean, I agree, I just wanted to make sure. And Jordan's truck, you know, if we were to replace his, because his is the oldest,
Yeah.
we could keep that, you know, for one of the other guys who isn't running around, you know, I would say as much as he is. So we could still keep the truck, until it really just, I don't know, I mean, I know the transmission's going out of it, so we may end up having to surplus it.
Now, on the salary line item, line 425 for Public Works, we budgeted $195,000 last year. We spent basically $179,000. And they're requesting to add 2 additional staff, and we're at $220,000.
Yes, that's on the sheet that the mayor has.
And part of that is replacing Raymond, that 220, right?
Well, he's just, no. I mean, well, yes, I mean, it's included. That is a total of 7. So that, the 220,000 is our current 5, not Jordan. No,
Right, Jordan's in water.
yes.
His salary goes into the water, so it's not Jordan.
That's only a
It's
40,000.
5, it is 5 plus an additional 2 new hires. So that would be a total of 7 in Public Works.
But is that going to, I guess what I'm asking, is that going to be
Is that
enough
gonna be
money? Because it's only a $40,000 increase, right? I'm not following, or?
220.
So 195 minus 220 is only $25,000 difference between.
Right, but you
Well,
have to
we
keep
got
in mind
budgeted
too,
last
we had
year.
an additional employee last year, which is why we budgeted 195, and he's no longer an employee. It was the one I gave you that had all the salaries on it.
So in effect, we're just really adding 1 salary to that particular down on that.
Yeah, that's my old one.
Here.
Public Works, that's currently who's here. So, and that's just based on these numbers.
And that's, if you divide it out, it's 31.
So actually, no, what he's saying is that enough? And this is not, so we've got Sam, Bobby. So that is not replacing Raymond. This is 2 new ones.
That doesn't include raises.
It does not include Raymond.
So that would have to be increased.
Yes.
Yeah, 2 new hires.
So we would be at 3, and I think I figured it out, starting is around 34. So we would need to add another 34 plus benefits.
So it has to go to 254 or 255.
Is it 220 now? Yeah, 255, I guess.
Maybe 255.
And then, okay, everybody who's on. And it does account for any, What was that, Mayor, 255?
255 on line 425.
So, jumping back just, we were talking about possibly increasing the starting salaries for the police department. I just want to make sure that, I was clear on that. If we decide to increase the starting salaries for the police department, I feel like we need to make that retro for people who are already employed, so that you hire are not making more than people who have been here. The next question I have, if somebody else has questions, please jump in, but I was just making notes as we went. 475 on page 3, where it says capital. The description out there is tornado siren communications equipment, and we have $0. Are we good on that?
Well,
What's the number?
Sorry, it's
475.
on page 3.
So I know the electrician charges $3,800 for the electrical, just the electrical on the siren alone. So I don't know how we got 2,500 in this particular line item already used.
That was for the purchase of it.
Okay, but didn't we pay him? Didn't the city pay him already?
Let me pull up that line item.
He was paid for the siren. He should have been paid for the electrical work. And then the other guy's supposed to come put it up,
Right.
connect the radios,
Yeah.
whatever.
That's 4,000. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
But it's not up there. Because it needs to have some kind of a radio receiver to make it work. So it's sitting on a slab back here.
Bruce Bartenfeld, Bartenfeld.
Barten.
Or Bartenfeld Electric.
Now, the only thing that has come through as far as an invoice goes is the $2,500 to Barton Cells Electric. Last August.
That would have been for the purchase of the,
That would have been for the purchase.
so he has not invoiced us anything since. And, that's all right.
My concern on that is, when the budget rolls over, the funds are not gonna be there for the tornado siren man.
Correct.
So, I don't know that it's gonna, I'm not throwing up on it, but I don't know it's gonna get done before July 1st. So we might need to look at putting funds in there to finish the tornado project.
Well, there's been some, issues. I've been working with the county, trying to get the frequencies, get them to release the frequencies that we need to interface the, communications equipment so we can operate it remotely instead of actually physically going to push a button. But the county they've moved away from all of that equipment now, so it's become increasingly more difficult to interface because the county now owns all of they control all of the frequencies and all the Motorola contracts and all that. So I've talked to Motorola's been giving the county, it's been
When we met out here, we talked about one of those little, like you would
just a little
put,
black box.
yeah, that'd be like if you had, they give, Winder gives them to, it's like an elderly
Right,
home who doesn't have a cell phone and they only have a landline.
right,
But it works just like a cell phone.
right.
And they said, well, yeah, that would work. I mean, they're like $40, according to, and they would send that signal out to 30666, and that little box
Right.
could be in a housing somewhere up here as long as it's
And
waterproof.
I talked to the installer about that, and he said he wasn't a fan of it for whatever reason, so. I think what we're gonna do is just get it installed and get it installed, and get it up there first, and then work on, maybe we can put some more money.
That thing goes up, it's not ready to go. The city is liable. That's the reason I had them take that other one down, because it didn't work. And all it takes is one person to say, that siren didn't go off.
Right.
And we've already got a liability problem, that's why our insurance is up. We don't need another, legal, as I said to you out here when you met with Chris,
Mm-hmm.
if it ain't gonna work, it can't go up,
Right.
because we can't have that liability to the city.
If we,
Has to be everything in a row, and we told him what we had left in the budget, and he was talking to the other guy, and he said they could make it work for that.
Okay. So let's leave.
So how much do you think it's going to take? Because it's going to need, as council said, it's going to need to be in there for 2022.
yeah, if it's not completed by the rollover of the budget, there's no money there in the budget to do it, then obviously, if we want to get it done, we have to make a budget amendment.
Is it 5,000 it's going to take? Because we had 40 something, and they said, yeah, we can make it work for that.
No, we amended that budget to 10.
So,
When we did the budget amendment, we took it from 40,000 to 10. So maybe we could put 8,000. Well, that's not gonna leave, we still owe Chris for the service, for the service. I thought he would.
If he gets that invoice in
Well, he's got
before,
to send us an invoice.
if he gets it in before
I
the
thought
budget
it
rolls
was
over,
now.
there's money there for it.
Right, yes.
So we need, at a minimum, we need $7,800 just for the services that we owe him for, and $4,000 for the estimate we got for Mr. McCraney to get it up and get it operational. So that's the base is 8,000 right
Now, but that 8,000 includes the electrician
All that work is done, everything is done.
Okay.
So what's left is to pay the electrician.
I know the work's done, but
Yeah.
paying him, right? He just needs to send us an invoice and we'll get it paid. For,
Exactly.
yeah. So that won't need to be in FY '22, right? Or is there more work to be done after that?
Unless he gets
As
it in.
stated, if he gets it into us and get it paid, it
Within the
can
next
go on
month.
this one. But it has to be, we're gonna need it in the next week or two, so we can get
If it
it
comes
paid out of
within
this fiscal budget.
If it comes within the first 15 days after the new fiscal year and it's something that we budgeted, we can accrue it, but it would have to be, I think it's 10, it might be 10 days. Within the first 10 to 15 days of the new fiscal year, we can accrue it back to the year that it was budgeted to.
Okay.
So, see if you can't entice them to send it.
I'll send him a message as soon as I get out.
You have a question?
I do, but I want to back up to the water sewer. Are we still going to take state money and put it into another fund when we know that the federal money is coming?
I don't know that. That's why I said we have to deal with what we have now. And then if those monies do come in, then we deal with it at that point and discuss it. And there'll have to be a public hearing so that the public will be aware of how much the funds are and what the intent is. And then we can all talk about it then.
Yeah.
But right now, that's future, so I can't address it, right now.
I think there may be some misunderstanding on the water, the way we discussed it the other night. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it. I don't think, so not cutting the budget necessarily like $800,000 out of our general budget and hoping that that money comes in. I think that might have been the way it came across, is that cut the $800,000 out of like the general budget that we're working on now, and then say, all right, $800,000 is coming in from the federal government. So, and that's not what I meant whenever I was speaking about it. We were looking at possibly taking the money and using it for projects. If we move money, using it for projects in a water department, that would be like reimbursed from that COVID money from the federal government.
To stay in compliance, right?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is the projects that we were talking about possibly doing, like Broad Street repair and so forth, and some of the other bigger projects, it's not funded in this budget right now.
Right.
That particular one's not.
Right.
So that's what's not going to be in this budget. So if we do that after the COVID money comes in, for instance, depending upon how much money comes in from that COVID relief, we could potentially, depending upon what the council and so forth votes, we potentially take that money and use it towards Broad Street or some of these other bigger projects that's going to cost a lot of money.
Right.
Kind of like we're spending our money in one aspect, but it's the COVID money that's replenished.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but that's not really, what I was asking is, if you can take some of that money from the water and put it into a different fund, like the police department, or like,
I think I see what you're saying, Sunny. So when we get the money, say we get the first round and it's $450,000, they're going to deposit it into our general fund. Okay, that's the account that the state has because that's where we get our loss. That's where we got the CARES Act money. That's just kind of our account that's tied to the government. So it's going to go into a general fund, and we're going to know exactly at that point how much money we're going to get. It is restricted, right? So even though it's going to be in our general fund bank account, and honestly, it might be very smart to, just for auditing purposes, and this is something that they even mentioned yesterday during the webinar, to open up accounts specifically for this money. Because that way, if we open up a bank account and we would transfer that money from the general fund into its own American Rescue Act bank account, and then I would have to create a new account in our system that would solely be for that account. That way, because we're going to be audited, first of all, and the federal government may audit us on those expenditures. And they made it pretty clear yesterday that we will be accountable for every penny that we spend. So, which is fine because, you know, they need to. I mean, it's federal government money. But I would create a separate account in our system, which would turn, once we would do a budget amendment, basically, you see the accounts that I created that are just zero balances, that's where they would go.
Right.
And, but right now, there's not anything in it. And, so, once we were to get that money, and once it's put into the account that it goes into, it should not, at that point, be transferred into the police department. It should not, at that point, be transferred into any other department of the general fund.
Okay, but,
But the
but you
water,
still
the
have
question was the
your
water.
water fund,
Yes.
water sewer fund,
Uh-huh.
that Statham has already.
We've already budgeted that, and this would be in addition to.
But no, I think to answer your question is no, you wouldn't take money out of the water
Okay,
fund
yeah, that's what I'm looking for,
unless
yeah.
it was to be used for water infrastructure.
Right,
And
okay,
I have
water sewer, yeah.
It couldn't stay in water and sewer.
Okay, that was my question, because I was thinking that money's gotta be in addition to what you already have budgeted. So that way you could.
It is,
Yeah.
but like Councilman Venable said, that allows us an opportunity to take $350,000 and replace, you know,
Right,
and do
yeah.
the sewer work that we need to
Yes,
do.
that's my
So,
concern, and
because-
to get wells dug, or whatever it is, to
Right, because
drinking water.
Right now, you know, the only project that we have budgeted with the revenue that we can foresee coming in is the one behind Castos. And that's a $250,000 project, you know, so that's a huge, you know, sewer, or actually it's stormwater, isn't it? More stormwater and sewer over there?
It's affecting both
It's
because
both, okay.
that's, like I said earlier, is part of that where some of the places, the stormwater is leaking into our sewer,
And we're
which is
paying
causing
for it.
spike
Yeah.
at the plant, because we meter, but they meter, and so they're the final word, and they say, well, you're supposed to only have this much capacity, and you're going every time it would rain. Now, we cut that back considerably. The two biggest areas we repaired. And then once we get that done, and there's a small one that's down beside Castos, going down Railroad Street, that, you know, we're working with the engineers to try and come up with the best way to handle that. Part of the problem is there's a big old water elm or willow elm, or I don't know trees. But at any rate, if we're not careful, it could affect about 40% of the root system,
Oh,
which the tree, the specialist says the tree would never survive. So we may have to consider leaving what's there and routing and putting in another line to do the work and just allow it to be there, because the last thing we need is that tree, which is in our right of way, falling on.
I mean, I know the water and sewers need
Yeah.
help for years and years, and it's just been a patch job here and there, and one day it is gonna all fail, so.
I just come across a quote on replacing the water line going up Broad Street, which we said is 50+ years old. But it was, I believe, from 2019, and I found another one for sewer replacement going up Broad Street, which is 70+ years old. But we're working with an engineering group to possibly look at, they'll do scopes and stuff to determine if they can do the liner like you did across the street. And that's good for 50 years. So, yeah.
It's $390,000.
Yeah,
But this was from 3 years ago.
yeah, so, it's gotta be probably 400 and, this is 390 to replace the water line, with a 6-inch, PVC water line going up, Broad Street. So it's probably from Jefferson all the way up to at least 8th Street, and it was for 390, and that was July of 2018, so it's probably 450 or 5, with the cost, and then there was another one for the sewer, so,
But when we do get the money, and let's just say that it's gonna be in FY '22, right? We will have to amend the budget, first of all, but, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay, you had a long day.
All right, anyway, yes.
Okay, can we go back to the siren real quick?
yeah.
I think it would be wise for us to leave about $6,000 for the siren. That would be the installation and any electronics that we might need. And we can also, I'll make sure that we get, the electrician paid.
What, 6?
Yeah.
So that's 6 for 2022,
Yes.
and you still have 2,500 right now, which may pay for what electrical he's done,
I think it was 38, his bill was 38.
38. So, okay, we had 10,000 in there, so only 2,500 was used, so we'd be okay.
Yeah, we can.
If he's got a
If we can
$3,800 bill,
get the electrician's bill and before the end of the fiscal
and
year.
then put
we can-
6,000 in for 2022.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, I'm on board now. Yes, real quick.
Okay, has somebody in the city been hiding money? Because I heard it tonight and I heard it one other time. Has somebody been caught doing that?
I'm not following you, but I don't think so.
Okay. It would be criminal if it was happening.
Don't know of any.
Okay, well, I heard it for the second time, so I just thought it might have happened.
Hmm. I don't have any.
Well, you said it, you're right.
Okay, so we got the siren taken care of, and we answered questions. Is there another section here that we need to?
Sidewalks.
Before we get to that, I think that's for
Still on the same page 3?
We are.
on page 4.
4, okay.
Are you talking about sidewalks?
Well, right under,
There's sidewalks that I was looking at.
well, there's 2 of them.
Okay.
So we got, item 479 sidewalks. And then we got another line item for sidewalks.
Yes, you're right. I had 2 separate sidewalk accounts, one because in
Oh,
the,
591.
yes, because in the SLOSS fund, we were using the remaining balance of the 2006 SLOSS. So I allocated the 45,725, which was left over from the 2006 SLOSS. So, and then in the Department 420, and under the other sidewalks, that you just referenced to that?
Yes, 420?
Yes, that would be for anything other than the money that we use for SLOSS. So in the 420, there's, on line 591, there's 0 budgeted because we use the rest of the 2006 SLOSS, which would go in that line item.
And 479?
Now, let me go to 479. 479, I just did not put anything in there because we didn't have any more funds based on the budgeted amount. And then plus, I just got your email today.
Yes, okay.
So that
So
would be,
Where,
You're gonna look at line 479.
479,
Yes.
okay,
39,275, and we used 2010. So are you moving that into another line item?
No, you're just looking at, no. You're looking at the one down. We have only spent $2,000 of that budgeted money.
Right,
The rest we used with the SPOS 2006.
but this line item 479, is that SPOS money?
No, line 5,
Okay, so this was money we budgeted, or the council budgeted, and of that, we only used 2010.
correct.
Okay, so we're not gonna budget any for 2022,
Unless you
or
guys
does
don't
it
have
go
it.
into another line item?
No.
Five,
Right, so-
what is the other one?
5, 591? Line 591 was the SPOS 2006.
479 was what we were going to use for
For this upcoming
striping
fiscal year.
and, the crosswalk repair and so forth.
Yeah, I mean,
and
so we can use that for sidewalks, for crosswalks, for, lines or whatever, striping. So for upcoming FY '22, we want to use line 479.
okay, that's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
Sorry about the confusion, but I just noticed,
That
I
there's
didn't know
two of
how-
them. Yeah.
I didn't know how that splosh sidewalk was affecting the bottom line on the one that we're gonna discuss now. And,
Right.
so, back in May, I sent an email out regarding the need for sidewalks in East Statham that would basically connect, everybody in East Statham from 8th Street to Hammond, to downtown at Broad Street. So basically I measured it, it was about 3,800 feet at 4 feet wide. So it was basically 1,000 square feet to connect, Hammond and Smith from there to, Broad Street, and then from Broad all the way to 8th. The total footage came out to be 3,800 feet, which is roughly 15,000 square feet. I was able to get 2 bids on that particular section of sidewalks. Those 2 bids, one came in at 79, and another one from Mr. Mayweather came in at 65. While I was working on this, I had the chance to work with Councilwoman Thrasher on the need for some more additional sidewalks over closer to where she lives, and we found some sidewalks at the end of Peter Street where they left off. They stopped. They just basically stopped working on the sidewalks, and so we measured the sidewalks over there on that side, on her side, and that was an additional 1,800 feet of sidewalk that will connect Peter Street to 8th Street, and then when you turn, it's 8th Street would run to Atlanta Highway, basically where we would cross the track. So we would have sidewalks connecting these 2 communities to downtown that are not, that currently don't have sidewalks. So the estimates I got for both sidewalks, one, Ms. Thrasher's side came out to 41,000, and mine came out to 65 and 79. So roughly, it's about $127,000 worth of
Did you send
sidewalks.
those to everybody? Because
I
I
just
only
got
saw one
one.
from today at 79,863, and I don't have any of those other ones at all.
the one right here from Mayweather, he just hand wrote one. I know we haven't
been using him because he won't finish the job.
well,
And I get hammered every day with citizens complaining that he doesn't finish the job, and then he'll say, well, I didn't know you wanted it done that way, it's another $7,000 for me to send my guys out and do it. Well, that should be part of the estimate, you know?
well, this gentleman with Paramount Foundation, he gave us a completely finished price, which, you know, we shouldn't really have to ask for a completely finished price, but that's,
What are those two total?
all of the sidewalks,
Yes,
121 basically.
well,
And
let's
that-
use the higher of the two, just for budgeting purposes.
127.
And that's with the 79.
That's with a 79 and a 40, well, 79 and 41, or 45, whatever that is. Just say 80 and 45, 125,000.
Is that connecting from, where we left off at Ventura?
Yes, uh-huh. Now, the sidewalks over there are 6 feet, they're 6 feet wide, and we're going to taper them in to 4 feet wide, so it'll save a little bit on cost. And we'll be able to connect, to, all the way to Atlanta Highway, around the curve at 8th Street.
Now, how are they gonna handle that ditch?
Which
They're gonna have to put in, when you come around off of Peter Street to come up to Atlanta Highway, you don't have room on that side, and you don't want them crossing this road. And over here, you've got open drainage.
Oh, you mean, at 8th and Peter Street?
Yeah, well, you make the turn off of
The
Peter
tree as you showed me?
on the 8th. It's an open ditch there, so they're gonna have to put a culvert in there, and fill it in or something. They can't just fill the ditch in because it's a drain ditch. So they've looked at that. I'm just asking,
Yeah, I don't know, I sent him the overview.
okay? Because, I mean,
I
you can
sent him
look
the
at,
overview right here like this.
Right.
I sent these pictures to him. I just did the basic Q public.
has he
And I
come
don't
out
know if, I know he did on this one, so,
with this?
which is the Broad and 8th Street, the Hammond.
Mayor, this type of project, it may need a sealed bid anyway.
It sounds like it,
Well-
what's the cutoff on, or anything over 25, and then
I believe so, I'll need to review.
we'll
Basically,
know.
what I'm saying is if we just set a budgeted amount,
Yeah.
then we'll have to go through the proper process as far as, you know, getting what type of bids, and I believe that they're sealed, they will be sealed bids.
Well, there are two different projects,
I think
and
it's
we
anything.
elect to do them at 2 different times. Can we split them up that way?
Oh, well, they would be split up, yes.
Yeah.
So I guess for budgeting purposes, I just need a dollar amount for everything that it is that you want to do in that particular line item.
Okay.
And all the
I think
details.
25 is the magic number, and
Right,
said
if
on
125 is the magic number, that's what's budgeted, and then we would just have to follow the finance policy and whatever charter says regarding finances. And I
Okay.
believe that anything over $25,000 is a sealed bid, which means that,
Oh,
you know, yes.
We'd have to do a
So-
request for.
And then you guys would have to, vote to approve whoever is contracted.
so would these not be considered then?
No.
Okay.
But for budgeting purposes, it gives us a really good idea as to, how much we're looking at. Because
Yeah.
it's hard to know, or hard
You
to
might
determine
want
how much something is gonna
150
cost.
in there instead of
You,
125,
yes, you may.
because you,
Dirt,
well,
culvert.
like I said, up there, if they didn't look at coming off of Peter Street onto 8th Street and coming up to Atlanta Highway, I mean, that presents a problem because it's not just a flat piece.
Yeah.
You can put, you've got drainage.
There's always something, right? You know,
Well,
so
yeah,
generally,
there's gonna be some challenges
right, generally, whatever the
on
cost
the
is,
other one.
you want to just, generally, you just think of a 10% contingency on top of that.
On top of
So if it's $125,000, we need to add a $12,500 contingency on top of that,
Okay.
just for any other, you know,
Incidental,
yeah,
okay,
culvert. Something needs something's broken, so,
okay.
So,
Well, anyway, I got the bids to get an idea on it. And both contractors said they could do it for, one contractor said $525 a square foot, and the other one said, $450 a square foot. But the $450 a square foot was having the city do backfill and having the city do, a portion of the work, and
which one was that one for?
that was for the bigger one of the two.
I would suggest
Hammond
putting
Road.
150 in there.
What's that?
I would suggest putting 150 instead of 125.
Okay, well, do it.
yes,
I just have a question. You're talking about coming down Hammond and along Rod up 8th Street. Does the city own enough property of the homeowners to be able to put a sidewalk in, because they all have ditches? So I would assume that the city has the responsibility for those ditches. What about the additional 6 feet into their yard? Are you
It's
gonna
on
have?
the other side. The right of way is on the pallet company and the tanker side. That's the easiest route.
Right, but not down Hammond. Hammond, you've got properties clear up to the ditches. So are you gonna have, I'm just saying, if the city does not own enough right-of-way, you're gonna have to also factor in paying those homeowners for putting a sidewalk in their yard.
Well, I chose the right side. If you're going down from here, if you're going home, basically, it'll be on the right-hand side, all the way, on the right-hand side on Hammond and on the right-hand side on that portion of Broad Street. And I picked the right side because it was easier, it was accessible, and I worked with Jordan, and he said we had the right-of-way.
okay, so you checked it.
Yeah,
Okay.
How far up Hammond are you planning on going, to the city limits?
yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious as to why you wanna run sidewalks all the way up, because very few people walk anyway up that way.
Because there's about 100 homes over there that when we increase the walkability score of our community, you're gonna have more people walking out because it's safer to walk with sidewalks than it is without.
I just think that's a project that maybe doesn't need to be slated for this coming fiscal year. I think that could be something that could be pushed out a little bit further. I don't know, we have sidewalks in our thing, and no one uses them. I don't see people walking on the sidewalk. So, it may be different on your side, you know, in your community, but I know in my community, nobody's out walking.
Well, there's 2 guys on Hammond I know that walk miles and miles and miles every day. One guy's named Scott. He's got spinal bifida, and I must encounter him 2 or 3 times a day.
Right, he is the only gentleman that seems to walk on a daily basis, but I'm wondering if he will use the sidewalk. He's got his routine down, so, you know, to build a sidewalk for the safety of one person, I don't know. That's a lot of money, that's all I'm saying. It's just a lot of money when we've got other expenses we've got to really consider at this point, so.
It's really not set up for one person. It's for everybody that lives in that whole community from 8 all the way over to where we live. Every home over there would then have access to sidewalks.
So then, what community are we going to next? Because there's a lot of communities in our town that do not have sidewalks to Broad Street.
Well, Ms. Thrasher and I identified one on her neighborhood,
right?
and
So every year you're going to add more developments and get them all connected, because that's basically what you're opening the door for. Because it's interesting that the two projects are in front of council members' homes. And you've got to make it sure that you're looking that it's not just that.
Come on. I mean, this is to benefit the main conduit in town, which is Broad Street. You seem to have a problem with that. There are numerous people, I've lived on Broad Street for 25 years, there are numerous people that have to utilize the street instead of the sidewalk. I don't, the argument, I think you're just bringing up an argument to stay an argument, let's be honest. I mean, the sidewalks are
I just think it's
this is in a
interesting
community,
that
it's
the two areas that
it's
you want
not,
to
but it's
approve
not,
is
there's
right next to the house.
already sidewalks in front of their house.
I asked to be, I asked to be civil, please.
Not sidewalks in front of
Okay.
their house.
Mayor.
Has nothing to do with that.
Yeah. So, I think from a citizen standpoint, you and a council member, we have to consider what people will say. And so, that going out there, I'm not saying it wouldn't be nice. However, going out Broad Street in Hammond, you have 3 council people who live out there. And somebody in another section towards Providence says, oh, so you gotta be on the council to get sidewalks. I think that's what she's saying.
that's not why.
But I know, but I'm just saying,
That's wrong that you
looking at
look
it,
at it that way.
but that is the reality of rumors or whatever you wanna call it. Something to consider.
Here's the reality.
So-
The reality is, we need sidewalks, and we're gonna get them.
Well,
That is the
put it-
reality.
You put it in the budget,
We're gonna put it in the
But we
budget,
have
and
to
we're gonna
look
vote
at
on it, and that's gonna be the end of it. That's the reality.
if it requires a sealed bid, then it's not, you can put it in the budget, but it's not gonna happen overnight. So we have to find out, but I believe it's 25,000. One of your bids is 45, and one of them is 78. So, I don't get a vote here. You all decide, but I'm just saying, I had a citizen that brought something up. You disagreed, but I have to look at it from the standpoint that if I were a citizen, and I've heard it sitting in this building, where, oh, if you're a council member, you get this. And everybody up here has heard it, okay?
But you got sidewalks in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
I don't.
And everybody walks on the street, but it doesn't matter. Just saying reality, okay? But you put it in the budget. We said 100 and whatever it is, 125 plus a contingency. So it's set up in the budget. We'll find out what that dollar amount is, and then we're gonna have to put out a request for bid. If it is 25, then we're gonna have sealed bid, and then those are open at the council, and then they choose whether it's the lowest bid, the highest bid, or the middle.
Well, yeah.
Okay, 25,000, right?
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what's in the,
Yeah, there's like a whole process for sealed bids that we have to follow. and-
but I don't open them.
No,
That'll be
it's not.
open to the
And
council.
it's not typically in front of a council, right? So it's, the people who put in the bids are usually in attendance, and staff are in attendance, and then they open them, and then they record what those are. And then just say we received 4, right? And then the 4 would, staff would pretty much evaluate each of the proposals to make sure that they're complete, to make sure that they're, adequate and that they can do the job, and you look at costs, so you look at numerous things, and then,
Licensing and.
right,
all.
and licensing, and if it's not a complete packet, then it's basically, tossed out.
Closed bids are
So, and
limited.
then of the 4, then staff can make a recommendation for council to approve to contract with one of those proposals.
Okay.
So it's a whole process, really.
All right. So we've got 100 and,
I put 150.
Okay, so if it's in there, now we move on to the next step, which would be verify, and if it is 25, then we're gonna have to do the sealed bids, from there, so. What, you had something else,
If we're done with page 3, on page 4, I got a couple items. Some of them be pretty hefty. Line 518, I'd like to, request that we bump that back up to $15,000. That's where it was before we amended the budget.
What page you want?
Page 4. We put 15 in there last year. I would like for us to put another 5 in there, make it 15 this year. Now the COVID seems to be letting up. Hopefully we can do more activities for people and get the community out, get them downtown. Maybe have some fun and get back to the community a little bit.
What line item was it, Gary?
518.
Yeah, okay.
I know Halloween seemed to be a big success, Christmas seemed to be a big success last year. We'd like to continue seeing that go on. Let's see. Moving down to line 589 and 591 for the sake of time, we'll just jump down to there.
Can we go back to parks real quick?
Sorry, where's that at?
518?
Well, it'd be parks expenditure.
Oh,
We had a couple of requests, from citizens to upgrade or actually get some new playground equipment for, both of our parks. And, the committee members reached out and we found some, playground equipment, and it was around, $7,000 or $8,000 per, for one set. So we'd like to put some funds in the parks. I don't know what line item would that go into the parks? Would that be in the repairs and maintenance, or
No,
general supplies?
No, I would have to create an account for that. That would be,
534?
no, that would be more of a capital project because it's over $2,500 and our current policy says anything over $2,500 has to be considered capital.
Okay.
So I would have to create a new line item for that.
Okay.
How much are you requesting?
times 2, you said?
15, well, it'd be 15,000 for the playgrounds, and another citizen requested that we look into getting a disc golf, course installed at Bridges Park, and that was, $3,000 for disc golf.
Disc golf.
Like frisbee.
It's like frisbee golf. There's a guy, over behind Castos. He's got 2. It's becoming really popular, and it's taken a lot. The thing about it here is in Bridges Park is that we have the open field area to utilize for like the first 2 or 3 holes, and then you go into the park and you play a few holes in the park, and then you return. Just say the back 9 would be ending up back out into the field and make it all. They're big events, and I think it would be a nice draw for the city, and the layout of the land really presents itself real nice for some of the ones I've seen online.
The 15,000, that's 2 playgrounds.
That's 2 playgrounds, and the 3,000 would be for disc golf at Bridges Park.
So 18,000
altogether.
I'd like to see something along those lines. I know people have asked for or spoken about new playground equipment. There's been a couple of people that talk about disc golf or something else over at the park, and this is about as cheap as you can really buy if you're gonna update the park or something.
Well, some of the playground equipment at Hillman was damaged, I guess, and it's pretty sparse too, what's there. But I know last year there was some damage because of, I don't remember the details, but I know some of it had gotten damaged and they removed it because it was actually a safety in the condition that it was. So they pulled it out because it couldn't be repaired, so.
We could also keep in mind too, Mayor, that if this is something that maybe could be done or added over the course of 2 or 3 fiscal years, and I know that we haven't really gone anywhere with it at this point, but remember we had originally, probably in January, we started talking about the impact fees for all the new developments. And the impact fee, a portion of it has to go towards recreation. So something like this would be covered under or included in any impact fees.
And those are added to new homes. Those are
Yeah,
not a
just
tax
right.
on anybody who lives here. But I've been basically told it'll never fly. So, but, you know, I keep mentioning it, and I think it's something that is a viable option for us, because as we expand, we would see the benefits of impact fees. Or things like that, parks and recreation.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to possibly add some lights at the park so, you know, people can be there and play ball even after it gets dark, but, you know.
I think a certain percentage of whatever is collected has to go towards parks and recreation.
And it would
Anyway,
help with.
It was just something to keep in mind, if this is something that we could do over a period of time, because playground equipment is very expensive, especially if you want to get some nicer stuff or newer stuff. And there are grants available out there for these types of things as well. I don't know how much of the grants they're doing right now, just with the whole thing with COVID, and maybe at this point everybody's trying to get grants, but.
I don't think we still qualify. We have to be within 6 months on our audits, so.
Well, these wouldn't come from
1
the
year.
state.
No, what I was gonna say is we have already been looking at grants, and sometimes private companies, they don't look at your audits, but we have also talked about possibly getting sponsorships. So what a sponsorship would in detail is the company would give you so much money to have a sign, and like at the disc golf course, you can find areas on the fence or something to put a sign. Also looking at the other part, the basketball court needs to be resurfaced right there too, also getting maybe sponsorship. So we're trying to facilitate money that would aid to give to the citizens recreation fund, because that's part of being in a community, is having these beautiful parks, these flowers, the beautification of presenting itself, but also with the walkability and just going out, exercising. Disc golf is it's really big. Pickleball is really big. But, you know, to lure the cost, we are seeking out private grants, also other grants and sponsorships. So this is just fresh on the boards right now. Christine has been in touch with some companies and working on that end of it, trying to prepare. Can't give an answer now because it takes a little bit, but to be able to compensate for some of the costs possibly.
I think the $3,000 would pay for the nets, and then the sponsorship, from what I'm reading, was the companies that come in and sponsor holes, and they'll put a little band, you know, they'll sponsor a little band around the hole, and then, you know, they'll donate enough money to sponsor each hole. So it's kind of a getting it off the ground type of thing. But I think with the topography, you know, went through there the other day. With the way the land is laid out, I think it lends itself to be a championship style, disc golf course. And that would really increase the foot traffic, not only in Statham, but throughout the whole city. Another request we had was, resurface, the basketball courts at Hillman Rainwater Park and repaint the lines and replace the nets. And that cost was estimated at $6,000. We got weeds growing up over there in the basketball courts. They don't get used enough, but I think if they were refurbished and resurfaced, they would have a lot more play over there.
That was three.
Did you have something else?
That was three.
Not on that.
6,006.
So I need to add another 6,000 on top of the 18?
Yeah, and I don't know if you just adding all this up and making it one line item, or.
Yes, I would.
I guess you can
And that's it for Parks and Recreation.
two line items, seven or 589, or do you have another one up here?
Line 573. That subtotal should be 18,000. It didn't add up correctly. And then, jumping down to line 589.
589?
Yeah, 589, paved streets.
Yes.
I know before, I think it was the last budget, I think, we had
300,000?
I think it was $350,000, and then we dropped it to $300,000, because the plan was to work on Hammond, Mulberry Broad, 8 Dooleytown roads. And I know that, well, really all those roads need resurfacing before they get so bad, especially Hammond. And, in my opinion, Hammond and Mulberry are the worst, but we dropped that from $350,000 down to $80,000, and I guess, what's our plan on roads if, I mean, we got some really bad roads, guys.
Yeah, and with all these additions, we're gonna have to offset something.
Yeah, I mean, that's a difference of $270,000 from where we originally started to now in order to try to make this budget balanced. We're gonna have to come up with some kind of solution on some of these roads. Otherwise, we're gonna end up spending even more money because you're not gonna be able to resurface them. You know, driving over towards Hammond, if you look at it, just look at it, it's chunking up. So I don't know what the cost, I don't know how they do cost for asphalt, I don't know what it is per mile, per foot, whatever it may be, but, how that's determined, but.
Great.
I talked to Jordan about the road, Hammond Road, and he seems to think that when the developer came in and did that, he didn't compact the roads, like you're supposed to, and that's why we're getting all the chunking and caving in, is because it's literally sinking, from when they developed it.
Is it in the subdivision?
No, it's kind of like Broad, you go out Broad, and you maybe half a mile of that, and then you can turn on to Hammond. Think about that direction.
It's like a connector.
It's like Gator or
Connector road or something?
whatever.
East Statham.
Yeah, these roads are gonna, I think are gonna become a big problem for us.
I think I've got to get with George, will probably be back next week. But I think he's had some companies looking at broad, but we have to, everywhere where there's a dip, there's a lateral line or something that connects sewer and water.
Water and sewer, yeah.
And so when that was done, they didn't, I don't think the compaction was done right. So, but they have to make sure that there's not an issue before they pave that. But I think he got an estimate on that, and we have an estimate to do the hot paint, but don't put lipstick on the pave. So we gotta figure out.
That's what he was mentioning.
And I think some of those lines, there are ghost lines up there that are abandoned, and but you know, you think this is the line on this side, goes over there, and that one's a dead line.
Yeah.
So there's some of them up there. I believe he says he's got 3 lines though. But I know he's working with the company on that. So, but at any rate, so back to the paving.
I guess we'll have to wait to hear from Jordan, but I don't think $80,000 is gonna get us anywhere near close to what we need to do on these roads.
$80,000 would probably get us about 0.2 of a mile.
So, you know,
And I don't remember the numbers that he threw at me that he had, but they were ballpark.
April, this says SPOS expenditure. Can we use those funds out of SPOS for this? I thought it was earmarked for sewer.
What's that?
It says SPOS expenditure, and then it's got 32420. It's due 210 paved streets.
Yeah. No, we're not using any SPOS for that. It is in the SPOS fund because a lot of our capital projects go in Fund 320. Why it's named SPOS, it was just named SPOS when I started here, so I've just kind of kept it rolling. But it is used for capital projects in general. But no SPOS funds will be used for the paved streets. Actually, I'll just put that on my notes, not confusing me.
Yeah, the 2006, whatever's left can be used for the sidewalk.
Well, the sidewalks too, because
Yeah, the 2006, but
yeah, we used the 2006.
2012 is strictly sewer.
2002 is only.
2018 is strictly sewer bond.
Right.
And I've got coming up in June, a meeting to discuss the new SPOS.
Really?
Just got an email today, so, but I think you and I talked about it, and we're probably gonna have to ask for the 2022 to be used for
Sewer bond.
sewer bond as
Yeah,
well,
the sewer bond,
because that's through
it's
2033.
2033.
If we don't have a hiccup, that's the earliest we
There's
can
no-
get it off.
there's no way we can- I think we talked about this before, but there's no way we can renegotiate that. And that interest on that is
Oh, it's
ridiculous.
insane.
Killing.
But that was done through the Winder Barrow, Industrial Building Authority. So they actually got the loans on behalf of the city of Statham, and the city of Statham is responsible for that loan. But, I guess the Winder Building,
Is there a possibility, I mean, and I don't know, that's the reason why I'm asking this, is there a possibility that somebody would let us borrow the money to pay Winder or whoever that loan's in?
well,
And
the
then
loan is
pay it
through
off?
Regions Bank, actually. So, yeah, so, the city of Statham couldn't apply for revenue bonds, so they had to use a different source. And the Winder Barrow Industrial Building Authority is like a joint authority that does this very thing for all the municipalities within its county. So they are the ones that applied for the revenue bonds. They did it on behalf of the city of Statham. It is our responsibility, they are our loans, but they were done through the Winder Barrow Building Authority. And as far as the payment goes, they come directly from the city of Statham. We pay them out of our accounts, we write the checks from our accounts. Now, as far as negotiating, honestly, this was done just so long ago, I have no idea.
I mean,
I don't really know a whole lot about it.
12 more years, and I know the interest creeps up a little bit. It seems every 6 months it's creeping up as it goes along, and then eventually it tapers off, I think, but,
It does.
I mean,
It was really high in the beginning, like our interest payment is $54,000 a year,
yeah,
$54,600.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, in 3 years' time, you can buy a small house. So that's the reason I was asking, is there any alternatives?
I don't
Or is
have
there
an answer for
anything,
you, but
is
I
there
can find
anything,
one.
yeah, if you could
I mean,
look into, if there's anything we can do to get rid of that, and that high interest, I know it's gonna be interest because of the sheer amount of money, but $54,000 every 6 months, and then we're about to tie up another 12 years of SPOS,
Yeah.
just paying for it, you know?
Yeah, now we make we basically make 3 payments a year. The first payment of the year is the straight interest payment, which is the $54,600. So we pay that, and then I think we pay it around October or November, if I remember right. And then it, by June 1st, so in May every year, we pay $215,000. And then they have some $645 annual fee, or I don't know why, just to get more money out of those. But, so we only have 2 payments a year, but one is straight interest and the other is straight principal. And that's just the way that this was designed, and we're paying on this until 2033. It's a long time, another 12 years. But
So do you want to put anything in the page speech, or just wait and see what I can find out?
I guess,
Jordan, because I'm sure we're going to talk about this next Thursday.
yeah, I guess instead of just putting some number out in there, let's try to find out what we're working with.
See if he's got some numbers, and I'll let you know on that too. So what, we have another one on this page?
I do, I think you got a question.
Oh, yes.
Can I get a better understanding of this, is, to track it right, the city got the bond to build a sewer plant. It ended up going over to Barrel, where we're paying our sewer, but we're paying the bond. If it went over to Barrel, why did Barrel take the bond with us?
well, actually, the bond is paying for the decommissioned sewer plant.
But that makes no sense. We obtained a bond, we built the sewer, it was given, now they're getting money off of it, and we're paying the bond.
They're not using our sewer plant.
It was,
It is decommissioned, it is not working. Essentially, we're paying for a building that nothing is there. There are no employees there, no sewer is running through the plant.
some of the monies, I understand, went to improvements at the water plant, but actually the bond was for
The sewer
The sewer
plant,
We had-
upgrades and repairs.
that has since been decommissioned.
When was it decommissioned?
2015 maybe?
So we're gonna pay almost $6 million
Yeah,
for a building that then.
When was this loan taken out?
2012.
12. Yeah, I think shortly after that, the plant was decommissioned.
That is absolutely correct.
It isn't, yeah, it's crazy. But because, now, the problem is really, because it was so long ago, I don't know what they did with the money when they received it. So I'm assuming that some of it maybe went to go and upgrade the water plant, maybe it made some repairs. I have no idea. But we essentially borrowed that money. We spent it somewhere because we still owe the bond, but it was on behalf of our sewer plant that has been decommissioned.
So we're paying money for a building that doesn't even really exist.
That's right.
So being
Because of the plant.
decommissioned, it can't get money into it to commission it?
Oh, it
Is
could.
that the thing?
And that's something that we'd actually even talk about, maybe at some point with all of the sewer capacity that we're having to deal with Barrow County, you know, yes, we could get the water, or the sewer treatment plant back up and running, but it would be millions of dollars to get it back up and going. Because, you know, we would have to repair all of the pumps that are in there, nothing, the plant, I think the plant had problems, and that's what they wanted, and I think, you know, that's what they wanted to do, is to upgrade that plant and to make it more workable. But for whatever reason, it didn't happen, but yes, we could get it back up and going. It would just probably be several $1 million to get it back up and going. But it might, I don't know, it's something to consider down the road for sure. Because as much as we're paying in capacity, you know, as much as we're paying, you know, for Barrow County to treat our sewer, you know, it might be something to think about in the future.
Well, I have more questions, but for the sake of time, it's 9:30. This is my last one for tonight. Line 689, infrastructure well development. That's on page 5.
689? Yes.
I would like to see it take that back up to 425 where it was. I know that's adding, you know, $113,000, but I believe that well development for Statham is Statham's future.
I do have an approximate cost for a well development and the construction of the well. Jordan gave me this right before he left.
That was 2019.
It is 2019, so it's a little outdated, but it at least gives us a point of reference. And for the production of the well development, for the aquifer testing, for the well building and the treatment, electrical, all that kind of stuff, we're looking at about $237,000. A good portion of it we're already starting to pay for, which is the support cost of the development.
Now, would that, and maybe this is a question for Jordan, but would that include tying into existing, basically start to finish? What I don't want to happen is we get
This is digging it.
So you get in the middle of this and then run out of money.
Right.
Yeah. How much did you want to put in there?
I would like to bump it back up to at least where it was, 425. I mean, if we can get a well on the line here, that's at least $300,000 we're not paying to Winder or Barrow County every year. We're going to make our money back sooner rather than later. So I think, to me, water, I mean, we see what it brings in here in the budget. That's Statham's kind of bread and butter, so to speak, and it's Statham's future. If we don't get this thing right and get enough water here to support not only what we have, but what's coming, we're gonna have our hands tied to other entities outside of Statham.
And to your point there, with it being infrastructure and water, is that going to qualify for the American Relief Act?
I think so.
So if that does, then we might be able to amend the budget in that direction in well development.
Sure. I would like to make sure the money's there, just, you know, and if we don't use that money, we can always amend the budget and put it elsewhere, but if the money doesn't come through from the federal government, we're kind of stuck. We don't have a well.
Yeah, now, we will be, on the June work session agenda, we are going to, I don't have the details yet because, Jordan hasn't been able to get the agreement, but I believe that they have found 3 well sites, potential well sites, and we need to do drilling to see basically to see how far down in the ground, the water is going to be. It's I think anywhere between 400 and 650 feet down. And, so there is going to be something on the agenda in June for council to approve the same gentleman that did a site survey to locate the wells or the potential wells, to have him go ahead and start doing the drilling to see how far down the well is going to be, the aquifer is.
And one of them is over Hillman, which is the best out of all the testing that he did. He got the best readings and did some other studies that come out very nicely. And the other two sites are very close to that as far as numbers. So.
I have one last question or a point. Well, this is for the spring. The camera for the spring,
Yes.
I would also like for us to get a couple of video cameras for our parks, just for public safety. One in each park wouldn't hurt. It would give us, just a little bit of coverage. If somebody went in there late at night and vandalized something, or there was an incident in there
We can add that to
with
the park,
either one.
the park's expenditure.
I don't know what kind of camera. Did we have one picked out?
No.
Or was it a trail cam or?
Well, yes, he mentioned that he would like to get some sort of trail cam out there for spring, because he wants to be able to hide them, Yes. Because of the vandals who are going out there vandalizing the spring.
Right.
I don't think it costs us a whole lot to repair it, but it's already happened 2 times, I think. So,
You had twice over the water plant.
yeah,
I think the police have a trail cam that they utilized, or we borrowed John's.
personal one, I think it was
Personal.
we used somebody's personal one, yes, but,
It was private.
yeah, so I think that for the spring anyway, I think they were trying to get some sort of like a trail cam. Now for the parks and stuff like that, I would definitely get something more commercial or heavy duty, just in case anybody tries throwing rocks at them, to try to break them,
Well,
or.
we've got power available in both of those parks at the community center, that if we put the cameras at the community centers, the vantage point, the coverage those cameras would be able to provide in a wide angle would really cover a lot, and we have power available in the community center. And there might even be a network connection over at the garage,
I'll add that to the plan.
Yeah.
a wireless network over there that we could tap onto.
It's one of my, because we were paying $60 a month or more, and they eliminated that because of the expenditure.
Right.
So they're running off the MiFi over there now, which is not doing too bad, but it's a lot cheaper.
I know that you wanted to kind of close this up, but I real quickly, I would like to just, to talk about the water and everything. I wanted to briefly talk about the library. What, do you guys have any thoughts on that? You guys all good with that? Are we gonna keep that? Did you guys get the report?
I saw the report and I'm good with it.
And you didn't have any questions about the permitting or anything like that? Or code enforcement? All right, so, then to just recap real quick, I am going to I'm going to research benefits from surrounding communities just to compare that. And the chief is going to look at pay, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other concerns, questions? Well, thank everyone for coming. Appreciate your time.
Well, we don't close the meeting. You have a motion to adjourn. You need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Now I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
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 Now,
All those
just
in
slow
favor?
down on that end.
All in favor?
We're too tight.
She was waiting